We are live.
All right. Welcome, everyone. And tonight we are going to discuss what the hell is anti-theism. So I'm going to give a little opener, and then James is going to give a little opener, and then we're going to open it up to the public for the discussion. And just want to remind everyone, if they like what they hear tonight, to like and subscribe. And also, hi, James. Okay. So, what the hell is anti-theism? There's about a 12-second clip of the cartoon Cyanide and Happiness, in which a frustrated scientist stares into the void of a time machine with 4 science books by a table. With each book that he proceeds to throw back in time, the background behind his own window grows more futuristic till the point the cars are flying around. Not fully done venting and out of books to throw, he notices a Bible is being used to hold the table up. So with one last toss, he throws it in and poof. All the futuristic buildings and vehicles dissipate into nothingness as civilization is left back at where he started. I think this is a good basis to where we should start. What the hell is anti-theism? Well, anti-theism simply means opposition to theism. More specifically, it's the notion that these theistic belief systems cause more overall harm than good. This is separate from being an atheist or an agnostic, as that asks what we believe and what we know. Instead, anti-theism is about combating a specific superstitious belief. Now, unlike other superstitions, it's one that can lead to harm, both physically, like we see in the Crusades, genital mutilation, and the 9/11 hijackers, culturally, as they try to get the religious views taught in our public schools or even into law, and morally, as we watch people defend genocide, rape, and slavery time and time again. There are a multitude of reasons to be an anti-theist. However, what the hell is an anti-theist? Well, it's not only someone who thinks burning people forever is evil, it's someone who thinks we should push back on the most pernicious superstition in history. Thank you.
Well, wow, Amy, that was a good old 1 moment.
No, I completely understand how you feel.
Lost my take a sip here. 1 moment. Apologize. Yeah, so we're here after Amy's debate with Nephilim Free, and that was a very good debate. I think Amy did very well outlining her case and making her case for, anti-theism. And that is, to me, the idea of being an anti-theist is to recognize the harm that comes to society from theism. Now, there are arguably some benefits, maybe, to theism. If someone has a raging out of control drug addiction and thinking that somebody up there loves them and doesn't want them to die of a heroin overdose, and that is enough for them to help that person to come back from the brink, maybe that's helpful for that person, even if it's purely based on placebo effect. And we hear all types of stories like that all the time from the theists of the ways that theism has helped them or gotten them through a certain situation, be it depression, thoughts of suicide, and things like that. But there's another darker side to it. There's other aspects of theism that you don't often hear a lot about because they don't want to really talk about it that much. And the first thing that it comes from is the problem when you have a large number of people in society accepting beliefs that that they have no rational reason to accept. And when you're in that mindset, and you will accept beliefs that you really don't have any rational reason to believe, that really it alters your worldview in a way that is probably not going to be very good for you. And we've seen over the centuries, we've seen the wars from religion, we've seen the religious persecution, we've seen Protestants and Catholics and Muslims killing each other over doctrinal differences, over differences of opinion. And we've gotten a little milder today. We don't really do that so much anymore. But there are still some aspects of theism that linger today and that cause harm. The aversion to science, because a lot of these theists are fundamentalists, young earth Christians, and that basically means they have to reject pretty much all of modern science, because just about every field of science lines up against their beliefs pretty much right across the board. They have to say all that's false, and then they have to pick up their Bronze Age book and try to convince you that the geologist is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This book, but that's really where it's true. And people who adopt their theology from this book and their morality from this book, a book that says if your child does something you don't like, beat the crap out of them with a rod. And if that doesn't work, execute them. Now, thankfully, the majority of parents don't take it to that level, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And every time it does happen, it's almost always happens because a parent is following Bronze Age parenting, because they think it's a supernatural edict from God that this is the appropriate way to rear your children. All the psychiatrists and child development experts who say that it's wrong, they're all dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. The Bronze Age book, they got it right. And that's just one example. And there's all types of examples through the Bible, like where a rapist has the opportunity to then marry the girl that they've raped, because let's face it, if she was a virgin before, she's not a virgin now. So no self-respecting man is going to want to be with her, because maybe she's a whore. Maybe she was with 20 guys before that. You don't know. She's with one. She might as well have been with 20. So then he gets to marry her. And, basically, according to biblical law, she has to do whatever basically he wants. He's in charge of her, as long as she's not on her period, because then she's not even really supposed to live in the house, because she's icky at that point. And so there's all sorts of problems with biblical morality and what that does to the people who hold to biblical literalism and what that does to their worldview. And it really skews a lot of people in the wrong way. Now, thankfully, we're evolving away from that. It's not becoming as much of an issue. We're becoming more tolerant to people in the LGBT community, which is good. We're not persecuting them anymore, and religion is evolving. As far as now, a lot of Christian denominations are okay with that. They don't really teach the literal view. But there are still plenty of religious people that do, and there still are plenty of other bad things involved in it. It's kind of a cake of doom, a recipe of doom, and there's all sorts of bad things in it. And there's a nice layer of icing on the top. So, it kind of looks good and it's presented good, but once you start unpacking it, there's a lot of soy in there. And we knew in the debate Nephilim was going to try to hang Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, and all the things that they did onto Amy. He did it. We saw that coming a mile away. He was going to do that because they were atheists. So therefore, atheists are bad people. And but I don't think Amy is advocating for authoritarian communist states like those people were. So it really has nothing to do with atheism. It has more to do with authoritarian government. And these people advocated for those harsh things who just happen to be atheists. Look at your newspaper. Look at all the people who do bad things every day. If you're in the United States, most of them are probably Christians, because most people in the United States claim to be Christians. I don't hang that on the head of all Christians when one Christian does something horrible. And you can't hang it on our head when an atheist does something horrible, because what does it matter? Most atheists don't commit mass murder. Most theists don't either. So there you go. And we knew he would try to dodge the fact that Hitler had the Gott mit uns on his belt buckle for his troops, which meant God with us in German. And regardless of whether his exact beliefs are hard to pin down exactly what he believed. It seems that he did definitely believe in a higher power. The Nazis, of course, they were into all sorts of occult rituals and things like that. It's hard to pin down what they exactly believed, but it's undeniable that they used the guise of Christianity to give at least the appearance that their work was on behalf of God, so that the people who did believe, the people who did go to church, would buy into it, thinking that Hitler is a believer. He believes in God. He's doing the Lord's work. And of course, we know that Hitler, he did have a big problem with the Jewish people, but he really didn't have nearly as big of a problem with Christianity, because most of Germany was Christian. It was much easier to go after a smaller minority of the people and blame them for all the problems. And then we know, of course, the terrible things that happened after that, which we don't blame on Christians. We blame on crazy, murderous fascists. So there you go.
Yeah, it's so funny how they love to bring that up, but then the moment that you show that it's either he was a theist like Hitler, or that it had nothing to do with the actual belief system, they kind of go, well, yeah, but atheists.
Yeah, I mean, it's throughout history, there have been so many wars fought over religious doctrines. And yeah, at the time, those didn't kill the same number of people that we killed in the modern era, because, at some point, humanity got its head out of its ass and decided to use naturalism to solve problems instead of relying on a Bronze Age book. So we had a huge population spike. We had a huge surge in technology that made warfare in the 20th century much more terrible than anything that had ever happened before. That's because we had all this technology we didn't have before, because the Bible, part of it was because the Bible retarded science for so long. You say, well, maybe that's good. And people do make that argument. Maybe people were happier, before we had all this modern technology, and before, the population surge, and when life was simpler. And you can make a case for that. But, be that as it may, the wars were still much more bloody because of technology and people.
And I just want to say that, I mean, like, the religious wars that have happened throughout history are numerous and long, and most of history. So the fact that they are trying to pin, because I see, yes, the USSR did terrible, terrible, evil atrocities, but they miscount. Why? It's not like he wanted his own people to starve. He did do terrible things to innocent people, but a lot of it also has to do with, I don't know, being dumb. They never addressed the fact that, like private property, that they took over the farms and then people starved, and they were like, wait, that doesn't work. Right. Okay.
When you go in and you take over a farm that's been run by a capitalist, for, family farm has been run by a capitalist all the time, and you take that, you throw them off the land, and you put people on that land who don't know shit about farming, and give them all sorts of production quotas, and your food supply goes way down because output goes down because they don't know the first thing about farming.
Exactly.
You run into trouble.
You want the private property to be making the corn. You want the government to be making sure that they're not making the corn out of people. Those are the two. You want to make sure there's no bad stuff in it, but the private, you want the entire motivation. And it's getting off. The other thing, just to talk about it, the notion of getting off subject. I think I did decently, but you could tell that like anytime we dug into something kind of deep, it was like, yeah, that's cool about slavery, but how do you even know about truth? It's like, yeah, I thought we were talking about owning people. It all
Yeah, and you know that they're always going to try to deflect and to get that way. They want to make everything about morality because they think theirs is superior because it's objectively it is objective. It's based on a book, whereas ours would be based on maybe actuality. And of course, he doesn't understand how morality could evolve and how people could develop systems of morality for their own benefit. That went way over his head. He didn't understand the first thing about that.
Yeah, he really didn't have any answer for my morality. They never have answers for my morality questions but
I mean, he rejects evolution. He rejects all of modern biology. So I mean, it's so hard to engage with someone like that who thinks that biology is dumb.
Can I tell you, it took restraint to even wrangle myself in as I was creating my preparation. I made one signal to evolution. I said it once, but I knew if I went down evolution, it would become an evolution debate.
And he would have loved to take it in that direction. Trust me. I know you didn't mention that, but he still even tried to pull it in that direction.
And I mean, I like evolution, but at the same time, it's rabbit holes, and it feels like you are debating subjects that are taught in grade school. Like, once it's taught in grade school, shouldn't be having debates on it. I like having debates on them. That's not the point. I'm saying we shouldn't be having debates.
I mean, debating evolution with Nephilim Free, that would require a lot of patience because he's not going to concede any point. He's just going to keep coming up with workarounds and really bad excuses for why everything just looks like it evolved, but it really didn't. All the animals from, you say that they're millions of years, they're just a few thousand years ago, but they all look different because only the deformed ones or only these fossilized, and all the normal ones that look like animals today, they didn't fossilize.
Sometimes it almost feels lazy just because you don't want to go back millions or billions of years. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of taxonomy and people that have spent their entire lives work trying to build this picture.
People who spend their entire career studying geology and will tell you that no, there's no way a global flood happened. Just no, could not have happened. And they'll just hand wave that off and say, well, my book says it happened, so there you go. You're wrong.
My thing about that is it goes back to my common theme of we're basically talking about a nursery rhyme, but it gets to the point where they it becomes literal. No, this is someone who dedicates time trying to debunk. Well, and reality. It's so funny. The funny thing is that he ties evolution much stronger to theism than an atheist ever would, which is funny because that's what he thinks. He thinks that that's what we're banking on. He's like, he seems to think he will disprove evolution and then there won't be atheists. But there were atheists before it. There was evolution. I don't know. I don't know where the logic. I think it just feels like a culture war to them. So that has to be the position.
That's part of it. It is a culture war, and I think in a way they like to keep the debate about evolution because they really don't want to debate the finer points of their theology because there's so many things involved that they believe that are illogical and demonstrably false and absurd. They'd rather talk about evolution.
Yeah, well, no, not only that, but it's rare you even find them talk about evolution. What they want to talk about is abiogenesis. That's the real rabbit hole, because that brings us back to our older topic, which is the mystery.
The God of the Gaps. There you go. We don't know exactly how it happened, so therefore, you've got your theory, we've got ours,
Exactly. And I want to also bring back a point you said in your opener, which is it's so funny how they really do have the audacity. I think not the audacity, that's a silly word, because I like that we're debating people that actually have credentials, but it is funny watching them go up against like, hi, I'm a biologist that's been teaching this for 30 years. And it's like, hello, I'm interlocutor doesn't believe in evolution and thinks it happened in 6 days, though I don't get it. I guess the joke thing was I said 6 days, but I guess by he meant 6,000. My it's
I
trying
don't
to
remember that part in the debate.
yeah. I said 6 literal 24 days, and he commented back that that's not true because 6,000. I never make this argument because it's a moral argument, but it's we're on here, so I'll make it. But it does slightly piss me off that they basically get rid of so much of our ancestors, like just generations and generations, people who had entire lives, who just lived, died, had children and a whole bunch of other crazy stories in between, and they just knock like most.
You have to think
200,000 years old.
These people think in 6,000 years the humans diverged from, I guess, 8 people off the ark, and then from there, then in 5,000 years, you have the Asian races develop, you have the Caucasians develop, you have the African race, you have the Indian race develop, and we don't see things happening anywhere nearly that fast. To think that could all happen in just a few thousand years is just, I don't know what would cause one to think that that's even remotely rational.
Biologically possible.
Yeah, it's literally impossible. Evolution doesn't happen that fast. And so they're proposing very rapid evolution in their time scale, but they're rejecting it over the time scale of reality, which is very slow change over a very long period of time adds up to very big change.
Yep. Well, they believe in the fact that there's even a difference. I bring this up to them. If you say that there's a difference between micro and macro evolution, you believe one and not the other. I mean, you're already on board. Now you're just picking what kind of evolution you like.
Well, that's why they have to fight so hard for the age of the Earth, because what they're saying, that you can't say, well, yeah, you could get in your car and you could drive down to the store, because you could never drive down to another city, or you could even another state. That's crazy. You could never go that far in your car, but we're okay with short commutes. But you're really in the same city, but you could never leave that city because you just never could, because magic.
I also don't. I mean, I'm obsessed with the different taxonomies, like carnivora, and just the way that everything looks. They have their similarities, but then differences, and that we can track them back. The fact that we have to debate so much now about dinosaurs. Were they real? Did dinosaurs exist? Dun dun dun.
And I just heard someone in my family, not blood related, but mentioned something that over Christmas. And now he's predisposed to some conspiracy theories, and I'm okay with entertaining some of them. But when you start talking about, I'll at least hear you out. I mean, it doesn't mean I think they're all right.
Can I tell you what my notion of conspiracies are?
What's that?
And I'm stealing this from a meme, but it is, I don't believe you. Continue.
Because that's a conspiracy.
No. That's whenever I see a conspiracy theorist. That's my general thought to it is, I don't believe you, but okay, go on.
I mean, some of them are at least interesting to hear, but when you start talking about flat Earth conspiracy or dinosaurs being fake, you're just leaving the realm of rational and reasonable. And I mean, you're almost in the realm of
logical, probable.
There were actually people in the 1800s when they first started finding these very large bones, and when it became apparent, I think at first people probably said, "Oh, those are the giants from Genesis," and then science said, "Actually, no, they're completely different. They're not large humans. They are completely different type of animal." And I think then at the time, some people even came out with the idea that, oh, you know what happened? The devil put those bones in the dirt to try to trick people into believing all this evolution stuff, that there were millions of years before people lived, and he's just, God's testing your faith with that. I mean, that's what they did. Some people did say for a while, and if you're still in that bandwagon today, or think that they're fake, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and I don't know. We're in a really weird era of conspiracy. It's been my pet peeve. I think I'm writing a bit on it, but it's because it's a weird combination, because we are all just getting access to information for the first time, and we would think in our heads, we go, okay, that's going to make us brilliant. But what it really is that we're in the Wild West right now. And like, it's just like, there's there is good and quality shit over here on this side. And then you can look over here and there's like a whole bunch of crazy shit.
That's true. But you know what? I do support free and open internet. I think even people that are wrong should be able to publish their views. I don't support censorship. No, I know you don't. I'm just saying, that's if that's the price we have to pay to have, free and open internet, free and open expression of ideas, is that even people who are wrong still get to express their views. I'm okay with that. And I do think at the end of the day, most people are reasonable, and they will, see the reasonable from the unreasonable, as James on Modern Day Debate says. The flat earthers have been pretty prolific in sending out their material, but I don't think they've been very successful in converting too many people. Maybe a few, but I don't think.
Smokey was complaining about that. I feel it's such a weird thing. I was watching his channel, and like he almost, I think he did compliment me, even though he disagreed with me many times. And the flat Earth thing was just getting to him, and I can see. I mean, it was a point in my thing, like theism. There's really no connection between flat Earth and theism, except for the fucking thing that they try and make with the round Bible thing. But it's just because, to me, you let one superstition in, you let them all in. But he was saying, and it is, when you have someone going around saying, listen, Jesus, and a flat Earth, it kind of hurts the two things that you just said before.
Oh, absolutely. When you tie the two of them together, yeah, absolutely. They both sound crazy. And don't get me wrong. Don't get the religious claims on their own are crazy in their own right. Yeah. But when you tie them with flat Earth or any of the other craziness or whatever, it makes it even worse.
Because it really would have to change your life. Like, it would just mean like just so many industries. Just so much of our life would be bullshit. Even the people that seem to be, from all measures, decent people, or even the anti-establishment. Like, if Elon Musk knows that gravity is not real and he's just shooting CGI rockets, I don't know where the money's coming from, but I guess he should keep doing it.
And what motivation they would have, that they never really get too deep into that. The only thing I've ever heard him say is, well, it's to make you think that the Earth is just this random rock in the middle of the universe, that it's not special, and we're just one planet of millions. And whereas if you look at it from the Bible perspective, the Earth is the center of the universe, and all these stars, they're all in our sky, in our atmosphere, and it's all here just for us. Yeah, this is it.
We're special. That's the common theme in religion. We're special.
And it does make you pause for a minute. Like, so if God's out there, and he really did create the Earth and everything, why did he make all these other billions of galaxies and stars and planets? What's the deal with them? Just to decorate the sky? I mean, it seems like an awful lot of stuff to create. To decorate the sky, if he's not going to do anything with any of them.
I mean, at what point is there for any other planets? They completely forget the funny thing is the 99.9% of the universe.
That is completely, as far as we know, uninhabitable, but yet fine-tuned for life.
Yes, well, that's the funny thing. Yeah, we haven't discovered life, and they are very obsessed with that. I'm not going back on abiogenesis. What was another?
No, but I mean, we've only really been looking for just a few years, and you know, they're going to gloat on that for a little while longer. But then when we do, they'll modify their theories, and you know, they'll
Yes,
change it.
or
Ken Hoven's he's already hedging his bets on abiogenesis because he already says that, well, if they produce life in the laboratory, then that would just prove it would take intelligence to do, right? Ha ha ha. But he'll gloat all day. Oh, they've never made life in the laboratory. That's never happened. They've never made it. It doesn't work. But then if we do, he'll just say, oh, well, there you go. Requires intelligence to do, so therefore God.
well, it's a heads I win, tails you lose. It's if you can't prove it, because of God. You can prove it, because of God.
Therefore, it had to be God. It couldn't just happen on its own. So these people like that, they're not honest actors. They're not honest interlocutors. They're not looking for the truth. They're just trying to keep the diluted, and most of them to keep their prestige and their position, because let's face it, if someone like Nephilim Free, if there was no God or anything, well, why would anybody really want to listen to anything he has to say? He doesn't really know much about anything. He's not really an expert on anything. There's way more people who know way more about anything else than he does. So what would you ever need to listen to him for? But through the context of religion, then he becomes an expert on that. So
yeah, well, it's kind of that they become experts in debating it, but not changing their views or adjusting to information.
If there was no God, Ken Hoven, would he have people just sending him money or buying his products just because he's a nice guy and they like him? Probably not. He'd probably have to go out and get an actual real job doing something. Now, you think he wants to get up and work an actual job? Or you think he just wants to peddle creationist material on his website and make a living through that? I see why he hasn't changed his views yet.
And hey, would you mind if I add Terra to the stream?
No, go ahead.
Hello there.
Hello, how y'all doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just came from a Smoky stream 40 minutes ago. I sobered up, so I'm ready for here. So
Is his stream still going? Or is he done?
Yeah, his stream's still going. I want to come on here, talk about abiogenesis, because I think that's fun. And in all honesty, like, I used to be in biochem before I switched to economics. And as an agnostic, like, I honestly think that, like, I kind of get lazy with problem solving, so I kind of go Occam's razor and I go, well, like, matter came here before living things, so I'm pretty sure that it has to come from living things or unliving things. And, like, I once brought this up with, like, my environmental science teacher, and his counter was, and pretty succinctly, it's like, I don't know what requires more assumptions, abiogenesis or biogenesis. So I thought it was kind of interesting. I would like to hear your thoughts on it for both. Like, if you're abiogenesis supporters.
Go ahead, Amy, first.
See, abiogenesis supporters. Abiogenesis is the most popular scientific hypothesis right now. And I would say it's really where all of the evidence lies. I don't want to commit a black swan fallacy and say that we have never, because we've never not discovered a naturalistic cause for something. And it wouldn't, and it also wouldn't make sense to me because of just there's nothing that special about us. Like wait, let me take that back. There's a lot of things special about us, but it has to be contextualized. Like, we are amazing. We're fucking amazing. We're one of the most amazing chemical reactions in the universe. But that being said, does that make it impossible that we just aren't the meaty machines, chemical machines that we think we are? And the other thing, theists tend to they really value. It's funny how much they value consciousness, and I don't see atheists push back on consciousness, but our consciousness is one of the ways that we evolved through abiogenesis to actually function on the macroscopic world. And I just don't see, it goes back to my body problem, why there would be a floating consciousness, going back to creationism, tying this into that, why that would be floating out there. I don't understand what it would get. I don't understand why it was waiting. It's like playing games. It's having difficult communication. It wanted to create this thing. It really just looks like a natural phenomena.
Okay. Do you mind if I steal man just in a different way?
Sure.
So, like, whenever you said, whenever we say essentially we're not special, but that deserves contextualization, I totally agree because as someone who is currently writing a sci-fi serial very quickly, I've been thinking about what if life was around an M-class red dwarf star, or what about a super large A-class star? The ones that go supernova very quickly. And whenever we consider sort of these filters. I sort of think through a Bayesian lens, through knowledge that if I were to make a lazy assumption, it's I think singular or singular and maybe very simple multicellular life is very common, but complex intelligent beings, if I do say so myself, and for everyone in here, is probably very rare. But I do
That's what
think
Amy said last week with the filtering.
I was going to say, you're not going to have much disagreement from me with there, because we were just talking about alien life and just how I think different stages are going to be more, I want to say, popularized in the universe. And I think more likely that there's going to be more single cellular life, and that it's rarer that you have what I call it a symbiosis event. You have you actually have it twice. You have it with mitochondria, and you have it, I actually think, with chloroplasts first. And so
that's why throughout the majority of the history of life on Earth, it was single cellular for a very long time before it made that jump to multicellular life.
Exactly.
I mean, there's actually a theory. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say there was actually a theory whenever Earth was possibly snowball 600 million years ago, because that's whenever multicellular life first emerged. It was basically life was so bored being single cellular and during harsh conditions that apparently this is a legitimate theory, but this is a sort of fringe in the sense of it relies on an assumption on snowball Earth and also this particular, I guess you could say, set of events. But apparently this theory says whenever multicellular life emerged, it's because of these harsh conditions led to sort of a sort of stasis of the environment where there was no large cause for change left. Sorry for that.
Well, like I said last time, it's going to be really interesting when we do eventually discover life off Earth, be it single cellular, or if we do find intelligent life. I think it's definitely there. It might even be here by now, but whenever we get a chance to look at it and study it, it's going to open up a lot of doors to understanding our own biogenesis, how that happened here, because there'd probably be certain parallels, but there'd probably be certain things that were different too.
Personally, I hope the Asari exist, or maybe the Vulcans, or I don't know. As a writer, I'd like it to be fun. I'd like aliens to look kind of similar to us, but maybe I'm biased because I have humanoid form.
I mean, there's a good reason that they might, because it's an effective design on Earth. If there were planets that were similar to Earth, it would probably
if we ran a
sort of similar.
I assume because of convergent evolution, you would get similar models. It's why you get similar looking models even on Earth, even when it's why you get hyenas and things like that.
Yeah, you would probably see certain forms of life that you would see all over, and then you'd have your oddballs, that for very unusual planets, but you would probably start to see patterns emerge.
Okay. Well, that was actually kind of fun. I just wanted to sort of leave my mark, so to speak. And it was
Great
really
input.
nice talking to both of you.
It was
Thank you.
nice talking to you.
Well,
I'll see you in the chat, but I'm kind of writing a book, and whenever I write fiction, I like to be intellectually honest compared to people like 5,000, 6,000 years ago. But that's irrelevant.
if
just
you
wanted.
get any ideas from us, there you go.
Yep.
I got
Inspiration.
one.
Oh.
Got one. That's secret because if I told you
don't
that,
spoil it. Don't spoil
That's
it.
okay. No spoilers.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, but we're going to be running more streams. We've been doing... Oh, that's okay, but he can still hear this. But we're going to be doing more Midnight Rants and more different streams. So welcome
Maybe
to join back.
Maybe review the debate again in detail and
Anyone.
pick apart
Even
each and
once?
every single Nephilim-free fallacy. I mean, that would take quite a while, but maybe just the big ones. I don't know.
Well, there was. I had a few. The one I just want to, just to tie back to anti-theism for a minute, just had rapist marry virgin, because that seems to be the number one of, well, it's the Old Testament.
Well, I mean, yeah, he did have that perfectly rehearsed answer that, God made those harsh rules in the Old Testament for that time period. He wouldn't really do those things like that today. We would never execute someone like Amy just for being who they are, even though the Bible says to do that, because, that was just for that time. Never mind, there are things in there that talked about being an everlasting covenant and certain things like that. I would assume they don't think it's okay to steal today or to bear false witness or to commit adultery. They'd say, God meant those to last forever. But, the thing about executing gay people or executing people for picking up sticks on the wrong day, we don't have to do that anymore.
Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask is, and you get different answers from different theists, but if you suddenly found out God wasn't real, would you go around killing people? You'd be shocked at I don't think you'd be shocked, but people would be shocked at the amount of people who tell me that yes, they'd go around killing people.
Yeah,
I don't believe them, but yeah.
It's hard to imagine they would. I know if I'm thinking Eric Hovind, I think maybe he said one time that if there were no God, you could just go out and rape and pillage and steal and kill, and you just do whatever you feel like doing. But even still, we have laws, and we have a justice system, and we have police to protect people from doing things like that. And that's not just connected to God. I don't think anybody would wake up tomorrow and say, well, if God's not real, let's just open up the prisons, let everybody out, fire all the cops, and let's just have anarchy.
Now, I saw Matt Dillhunty debate, I forget his name, but I guarantee you it's an easy one to find. But I saw him debate someone. He claims he is a recovered sociopath, or not even a recovered. He found God, but he's still a sociopath. But he doesn't kill people because Jesus. And Matt he'll say, oh, well, okay. I mean, at that point, friggin' believe. If this is what it takes if it takes lying to yourself not to kill people, then I guess I'm in favor of that. But anyone who's not, let's put anyone who's not a sociopath away. I think we can figure out how to be empathetic, kind, and fair. I think we can figure that out on our own.
Well, that's like what I said before. Like if you have people who have had raging out of control drug addictions, and then they suddenly have a conversion to Christianity, and feeling that presence of God and that love is enough to help them overcome that, so they're not on the brink of death. I mean, I guess that is a good thing. Again, like you say, if you had to lie to yourself about it in order to do it, I guess it would still be a positive thing for the person. I mean, it's, I guess, kind of like the parents who would tell their kids to be good because Santa Claus is watching,
Exactly.
and
Well,
whatnot.
it's definitely not skeptical. It's basically having cognitive dissonance so you don't kill people.
And if it's placebo and it works and it helps certain people, okay. But
But everyone else.
that would be a good element of theism, that it might help people in that position. But still, again, you have to take the good with the bad. So you have to take all these other very deleterious aspects of religion that aren't so fuzzy and that aren't so pretty. And
Like
you
the
do
avoidance
have
of
people.
death cults.
I mean, Nephilim Free dodged it today, but you do have a sizable contingent of Christianity, probably I'd say the majority, who believe that Jesus is coming back within 10 to 15, 20, certainly not more than 30 or 40 years from now. He'll be back.
Also,
So
can
we
I
don't really
tell
have to.
you,
Yeah, go ahead.
thinking back on it, how funny is it that a young Earth creationist just told me, I don't really know if Jesus is coming back. I feel like that's progress now that I'm thinking about it.
I'd say he's probably hedging his bets, and I think I've seen this happen a lot because maybe in the 90s, the early 2000s, it became really hot in the evangelical circles for them to start talking about end times and pushing all these theories about this is in Revelation and that ties with this ties with that. That's going to happen next. The problem is nothing ever seems to really happen. And I saw a video the other day about maybe Donald Trump is the Antichrist. 10 years ago, there were videos about Obama being the Antichrist. 5 years before that, it was about George W. Bush. And we didn't have any YouTube when Bill Clinton was president. But if there was, they probably would have labeled him the Antichrist too.
Exactly. Well, no, that's how you know it's not true. You can take Trump and Obama, and people feel that it definitely. It both doesn't matter. They can feel they're saviors and the Antichrist. You get both sides who say that they, So that kind of negates it. Everyone's the Antichrist. It's so funny how many Antichrists are actually out there. If you actually ask people, he's everywhere. He's busy.
But the thing is, once you get a track record of failure with these predictions, so someone like Nephilim Free is hedging his bets and saying, "Oh, I don't really want to wade in that pool because basically everything they say turns out to be wrong. So I'm not even gonna go in that pool. I'm just gonna say it's gonna happen so far in the future that I'll be long dead by then." But there are a good chunk that think it's happening now.
And you watch you watch the billboards change. It's like they'll be like, the time is ending September 17th year, and then it's like, well, that kind of fell through. So they're like, I got new revelation. They were testing me. The new date is 1 year from now on September 17th. And it's like, okay.
Even Ken Hoven, now, if you watched his stuff in the 90s and the early 2000s, he was very much pushing that God could come any moment now. He's going to come. He could basically come in the next few seconds, but definitely not.
I love
it's not
that
going to
phrasing. Someone used that phrasing the other day in modern day debate, and I just so wish I could be there they're like, Jesus is coming. I'm like, yes, hot. But I feel like they would not respond well to that.
No, that would not go very well, Amy. well. But anyway, yeah. So Ken Hoven, then he went to prison. He came out of prison with this new modified theology for the end times. Of course, he's got books, he's got charts, and he's got all sorts of things he can sell you to get ready for it. But it's not going to happen like right now or anything. It's going to probably happen maybe the mid to late 2020s. Maybe it might start around 2024, 2025, and it would be 7 years from then. But the way he's working it is that the rapture is going to happen at some point towards the middle or the end of the tribulation, because if you're pre-trib rapture, and this is, you probably don't know a whole lot of, because it's deep into Christianity and Christian teaching, but if you believe in a pre-trib rapture, you always know that that the tribulation hasn't started because the Christians are still here. So you always know that. But if you don't believe in pre-trib, then you could theoretically be in the tribulation at any time, and you wouldn't know about it if it was necessarily in the early stages of it, because the first couple years is not going to be all that chaotic until like the last half of it is when all hell starts to break loose. So that gives someone like Ken Hoven plenty of time to sell books and DVDs and charts and everything. And then, come 2028, 2029, he'll come out and say, yeah, I guess I got the years a little off, but he'll probably be almost 80, 90 years old by then. So, he'll sit in his compound and count his money.
You made a good point, and here's one of the best anti-theist points that we can make tonight. Religion loves money, and a funny thing, it's not my joke, but the funny thing about God, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing, just can't handle money. I think this
He needs you to give him money, otherwise, he doesn't pay, the bills don't get paid.
Yes, and
so he funds himself
donations
by giving you the money, and then he wants you to voluntarily give some of it back to him, so that he can do what he needs to do with the money.
Yeah, well, and things like the prosperity gospel make me sick. Like,
I mean, it's a blatant scam. It really is. If it was under any other guise other than religion, it would be a crime.
Yeah,
it would be blatant fraud. But because it's religion, they can sell you false hope and these faith healers.
Oh, worse than that, because it's religion, it's fucking tax-free. They get everything. They get every single dime.
They get to lie to people. They get to give people false hope. They get to, I mean, if you met anybody on the street and they said, hey, give me some money, I'll tell you how you can live forever, probably say you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But if he's at the pulpit of the church, well, I guess he knows what he's talking about, right?
Well, they don't. This is another thing I harp on. They really don't get how weird ritual human sacrifice is. I saw I did a good point on that. I think James was laughing by the end of my my opener because I made some enticing statements.
Yeah, I think that triggered. I think I remember Smokey getting triggered about that a little bit too in our debate about the human sacrifice thing. Yeah, he was like, "Well, you're gonna eat the meat anyway. I mean, it's you eat meat, so therefore it's okay."
James, before you should at least eat your whole Jesus. You know what I mean? You can't just throw out. That's waste.
Well, the you eat meat, so therefore, what's the big deal if God wants the priests are going to eat it anyway? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how that allows God to forgive sin.
And it doesn't. It doesn't excuse the whole. Someone said this in chat. The whole, he could Thanos snaps in a way, but he's like, yeah, I think we should kill someone.
And you were channeling me in the thing when you said, if we should empty the death row and just put innocent people there instead of the killers.
Yeah, because that's exactly what it is. You're saying, and I can't frame it any other way, but you are the villains in this. You come to a group, into a new village. They're like, hey, we have things great around here, and it's going to continue to be great. And you're like, why? And it's like, well, we got Bob. And the thing about Bob is he's the nicest guy you've ever met. He is the nicest, sweetest, most perfect man. And the thing about Bob is the moment that we kill him, all our friggin' sins are gone. And you're like, oh, you're the villains, right? Like, oh, I get it. I get where this story is going.
No, it's this substitutionary atonement, this allowing him to be killed for your sins. I mean, I guess it sounds good, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you get down to it.
Yeah, and it all another point before we've lingered on it for so long because I don't know if it was Neff or Smokey. I think Neff. It was Neff during the debate. You know, they just feel like it's them specifically that's getting picked on, like Christianity. But but honestly, it's just because it's two things. It's a bias because it's their religion, and it's because they're just being put up so much because we live here. Though it's so funny. I've made lots of points against Muslims and Jews and all this other stuff, but they once again biased. But yeah, what were you saying?
No, I was gonna say, I mean, they are people who go on the internet to advocate for Christianity, so I don't see why they would be upset if you're just responding to the claims that they're making, right? They're coming there claiming that Christianity is true, claiming you should believe in it. You know, they have to be prepared to accept the other point of view.
Yeah, and yeah. I just thought it was funny that they were even going after each other. Well, and that brings me back to another
Smokey
point.
and Nephilim free, yeah.
Yeah, is just that it always splinters. Like, because atheists or non-believers, like, I'm trying to think. The only well-known, like, quote unquote, like, guy who likes to really debate agnosticism is Steve McRae. But even him and like all the non-believers, we generally, I wouldn't say we agree on everything, but but we don't have all these like thousands of different. I mean, superstition. I hate to say they're making it up as you go along, but they're making it up as you go along. When you can do that, and when the guy on the right side of your pew has a different theology than the guy on the left side of the pew, it's only a matter of time before all three of you are fighting.
Well, the thing is, they base everything on this book that has conflicting statements and ideas and philosophies all over the place. It's like a spaghetti line of reasoning, and they all have their certain verses that they look at and their certain reasoning for why this one matters and this is different. That's out of context. And yeah, but you never really get to resolve anything because it's just opinion, because it's not testable, it's not verifiable, it's just based on people's opinion, and people have their come into that with their biases and their, people tend to read things the way at some level they want them to be read. So, it's not like science where it's 1 + 1 is 2. It's not, well, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 26. I don't know. Depends where you read.
That's the great thing about science. It's just not your opinion. Like, that's the great. I really try and stay away from politics because I feel politics is people's opinions. And you can give good opinions. You can try to give, educated opinions. But I just like arguing science and the superstitious nonsense because it's so much easier because we know it's true. It's like I have to have an advantage in debating the age of the earth because it's not even up to me. It's like I'm not even debating you. I'm explaining to you what is.
And yeah, Smokey, he was talking with, now he's not a young earther, so he disagrees with Nephilim Free on that, but he's not, I mean, that's not the basis of their theological disagreement. It's based on the Trinity and about dealing with other Christians who waffle on the Trinity. So Smokey has a very hardline Trinitarian view, and his view also says that you have to regard Christians who don't hold to that view on the Trinity as heretics, as they're not really Christian, whereas Nephilim Free has a slightly more nuanced version of the Trinity, but he's not dogmatic about it. So if you have a different view than him, he'll still work with you and consider you to be a Christian. They'll just say, hey, you have a little different view on this than I do, but you're still a Christian. Whereas this Smokey will say, no, you're actually not a Christian because you don't have the correct view on the Trinity. So that's the basis of their theological disagreement, even though Nephilim Free is a young earther and Smokey is not quite a young earther. I hate to characterize his views in any way. He'll just come in and he'll just say you're strawmanning him no matter what. But even if you really try to do the best job explaining it, he'll just say you're strawmanning him anyway. So
Neff is a non-denominational young Earth creationist. I think he actually says that on his page. Now that I think about it.
yeah, I believe so. I don't think Smokey claims to a denomination.
Well, the Trinity is one of those things. I was about to bring it up, but the Trinity really brings it into focus. How we're really just arguing about fandom, like it's biblical fandom,
Yeah,
like it's
like
people
Star
that are
Wars.
really exactly. But
Yeah.
and it's all and it's that, and then it's one step further because they're arguing about the creator of the universe. Like it's not even at least. You know what? With Star Wars and Star Trek and all other fandoms, you know what? They don't think it's real. They are arguing about concepts and opinions, but they don't have this There's just some like goes back to good old religious humbleness, where they just think they know about the creator of they know the insights. They got it. They got it.
Well, I mean, these young Earthers, they have a tremendous camaraderie among them, where they look at it. They look at that as almost the most important thing if you're a young Earther, because they're battling that every day, day and night. They're fighting. They've got science pushing at them from every direction, caving in on them, and they're fighting the good fight. They're going out there and fighting every day to try to maintain this belief. And so if you might have a little view on something else or whatever, but as long as you're young Earther, you're in that fight with me, you're good.
Well, exactly. They build a community. And I was going to say, James, they finally won the war. They can say Christmas again.
And I'm an atheist. I'm not offended by. I'll tell people Merry Christmas. It doesn't bother me. It's a cultural
actually
thing.
offended?
It's not that big of a deal.
No,
I mean,
they're offended. They're offended because they want to be offended.
If I go to a store and they have a religious icon on a cup or whatever, it you know what? It doesn't matter, because there are people in society, they do hold these beliefs and they're sincere and they're people too. And I might not agree with those beliefs, but it doesn't really get to me like that, like it does some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been a Christian. I understand how Christians think. I understand most of them are not hateful people. They're not bad people. Most of them are actually decent people. And we have to remember that what we're trying to do is we're trying to help them. And now they would be very upset about that, but we're trying to help them. We're trying to help them understand, reality. And what I always say is, Amy, if you're walking through the woods and you hear a commotion and you look up ahead, and let's say there's this bear and he's caught in a poacher's trap and it's got him trapped there. He doesn't know what to do. He's hurt. He's angry. You could go up to it with every intent on helping him. You mean him no harm, but he's probably going to react very hostile to you because he has no idea that you don't mean him any harm. All he knows is he's in a vulnerable position. He's in trouble. He doesn't know who you are, what you're about, so he's not going to take a chance. So it's I see a lot of, that's why I look at a lot of how they are, even when they're being hostile. In a way, it's more defensive than offensive because they're backed into a corner. They have these beliefs that are under attack, and they really want you to just go away so they can continue with their delusion.
And I'm very biased, but once again, you brought up a bear. Carnivora, and so I'd probably just let the bear eat me while I tried to hug them.
Well, there you go. I mean, and that's what, like I view us atheists, and similarly to like how they view it, and probably would trigger them. But like I almost think of my atheism as a ministry. Like I'm trying to minister to these people, but I'm not I'm a minister of reality. And the thing is, there's different Christian ministers, your ministry is not of atheism is going to look a little different than mine. And there's all different ways of doing it because there's all different ways of reaching different people. There's no one size fits all approach. So, we're all kind of doing our own thing, the best that we can do. But the goal is to try to help people, to open up minds, open up eyes.
And I would say I'm an anti-proselytizer. Like, I view myself as trying to go out there and get rid of superstition. I feel like we live in I guess it goes back to superstition. It frustrates me so much, and it feels like if we could just untie some of the knots. Like, I do dumb things all day, but it's just weird that some of the beliefs are just like, I don't know. It brings me back to Giants. I should have asked Nephilim about Giants.
Well, I mean, the truth is, I think at some level we all probably have a few beliefs that are probably not the most rational, but we all have our different ones, why we believe them or think. So, in that regard, I think we're all guilty a little bit.
Oh, no. See, I'm going to be politically incorrect, but my joke, generally speaking, is that I'm retarded and there's a lot of dumb Americans out there. And I will take being retarded any day of the week because I'm eventually going to get to the finish line. I'm just trying my best. But there's just so many. I used to think that the flat earth was, I was on 4chan when people were trying to, both were trying to debate it. And both when they were when half them were like, this is a joke, right? Like, this is a joke. And I thought it was a joke too. And then it got on YouTube channels, so then it got.
Yeah, you could almost do like a study about that to see how it spreaded when it really started to take off. And it's always been a thing, but it really, really started to take off. I don't know, around the 2010, 11, 12, it started to pick up steam and more channels. And then YouTube tweaked their algorithm, so now it's actually a lot harder to find their content.
Well, they finally fixed that because their algorithm was actually going frigging crazy, and it was sending people to conspiracy. Basically, if you saw just one thing that was kind of a little bit off, they're like, okay, let's see how, and
they'll send you down the rabbit hole.
They send you down the rabbit hole.
They'll send you all the way down the rabbit hole, collect all that ad revenue.
Can I
watch all these videos?
Go on a complete another tangent, but how much the term red pill pisses me off because it was such a cool term, and it meant solipsism. It meant like you couldn't know if you. It really was about you could. It really was the brain in the vat question. Literally, it was like, I am going to take this and give you information, or you could not take it, and it's just become this weird.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It did get overused, and where now if you're
it's become political.
Yeah, you believe all these crazy things. Well, no, I mean,
it's supposed to be. It's just deals with solipsism. It deals with that. We can't. Can you truly know anything at all? And nifty questions that we should think about unless that's the debate topic, because they tend to go to that.
They're really not going to get anywhere with them. It's a work of philosophy.
But how do we know anything? How do you know you're not just
philosophical work? That they've been debating about for thousands of years. They probably will be debating it thousands of years from now. There's never going to be a resolution because that's all it is. It's just a nifty little quirk, but it's actually useless.
Well, it's also an effect to me. It would put in the cart before the horse. There was billions of years. At least we don't know of any species that had computers, and then we created. This is what annoys me about this gene and code argument. Is there was natural life and codes for 4 billion years, and then there was humans for 200,000 years, and then in the past 200 years we created code, and then they're like, aha! Hasn't there always been intelligent codes? They're like, no, actually, the majority of time it hasn't. Actual thinking people making these little codes, brand new.
Did you see the debate with Maddox and Otangelo versus Erica? And I think Dr. I don't know, it's Sai is
That's
his
the
name?
most recent one.
Yeah, it was on this week on Modern Day Debate.
I feel bad. I saw portions of it. I should have saw more because I love Erica gets so much props because she is so calm when it is just complete craziness. When I know I would be, even though I'm, quote unquote nice or whatever, I can get snarky. I can get, I've never seen Erica get snarky. It's amazing how she has this way of, if I agree with you, and then she tells you why you're wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And so you're like,
no, she's very she has a very subtle way about her, I guess you could say. It's very, very calm, but still in a forceful way. She still makes her case very strongly.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I consider her, she knows her field of biology. A lot of experts,
she knows, absolutely.
I can imagine a lot of physicists, when they deal with their first flat earther, they have middle fingers to show them. Like, okay, here I'm going to explain how the world is round, and then and they tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was talking about that one time, and he, one of the most famous physicists in the world, and he was talking to someone who had and they got where they were going through like the different proofs and whatever, and Neil deGrasse, he got to the point where he's like, well, what about the pictures from space? And the guy said, I mean, couldn't it just be CGI? And Neil deGrasse, he said right there, he said, okay.
Because once again, that's my cart horse problem. Is once we invent it, they're like, couldn't it have always been here forever? It's like no.
Yeah.
Like
he's like, so right now, you are just not ready to accept what it is I'm trying to tell you. So, take some time, think about it. But we can't continue this discussion if you're just going to, if I'm giving you a pretty undeniable proof about the shape of the world, the fact that we have pictures from space of a round world, and if you want to continue to believe it's flat based on, well, I mean, I guess it could be CGI, then there's really nothing that is ever going to be able to show you or prove to you at this point that we're just not going to be able to make any progress right now.
Also, at that point, what you're telling me is you need to, like, you're not going to believe anything unless it is right in front of you. Like, you're not going to believe the Earth is round unless you're in space. And so,
and even then, well, maybe I was drugged, and maybe the window was not really a window. Maybe it was like a view screen, and it was pumping, the CGI images, and yeah,
because you can ad hoc your way to all day.
Right. Well, this debate with Erica and them, that was, I have to say, John Maddox, he was playing chess with this, because I'm convinced he planned this out. But he got, so Erica's partner is I believe he's a doctor of biology. He's actually a Christian, and he accepts that DNA is a code because he believes in God. So he believes it's a code that God wrote, but he does believe in evolution. So John Maddox was able to divert the debate in that direction, where Erica and her partner are disagreeing, and her partner is even more credentialed than she is, but he's biased because he's a Christian. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be a Christian and believe in evolution. That's fine. That's just one more true thing that you're accepting. That's good. That's fine. But he was he did that very masterfully in there. I have to give him credit for that, even though he's a devious person. But he's
well, the more science they accept, the better it is for my eyes in society. It's the entire reason why I'm doing it. But then on the flip side, the harder they are to pin down on anything, because it's much easier to just, I mean, I can prove the Earth is not 6,000 years old. That's not theology. It's not going to prove a God isn't real. But I mean, if that's what you're banking your beliefs on for a deity, then let's bring it on.
Yeah. Whereas if you have someone like Smoky Saint, or I don't want to put James Coons in the same genre as Smoky Saint, but because he's obviously much more reasonable, but someone like Smoky Saint or other Christians, your ultra liberal Christianity, where they only defend Bible claims and religious claims that are untestable. So if you can test it and prove it wrong, they don't defend that claim. They just rework their theology around it. So, okay, evolution's a fact. Oh, evolution's a fact. How can we work the theology around that, and what workarounds and what can we do to make that work with the theology? And those are it's a lot harder to pin down and to reach a conclusion with those type of debaters.
Exactly. Well, then they tend to defend deism. And although that they tend to do, that's when we start getting into the Kalam and all this, because, defending zombies and the going over the moon and parting the Red Sea, a little bit harder.
I mean, because all they're really going to stand firm on is creation of the universe, God of the gaps, abiogenesis, God of the gaps. They're going to make unsubstantiated claims about the resurrection. Hard to prove it didn't happen, even though they don't have good evidence that it did. But that's really the few things that you can nail them on. You could prove the entire Old Testament was allegory or didn't really happen that way. They'll just say, okay, it really doesn't matter because Jesus is God. And Jesus rose from the dead, so I believe in Jesus.
Neff also pulled this one tactic. I kind of brushed it off. I've seen some atheists that get really bothered by it, but it's the whole, he at a certain point, he's like, we're debating, but I know you're not an atheist.
Yeah. I remember that part in the debate, and he's like, the Bible tells me that nobody is an atheist, that you all know, but you just don't accept it, or you pretend you don't know because you don't like it.
Which doesn't sound offensive as fuck. Not at all.
Yeah, that, and there are theists who do make that case. And I mean, how can you propose to know what's in my mind? But by that same token, there are theists who will tell me when I tell them I was a Christian, they'll say, no, you weren't. I'll say, actually, yeah, I was. They'll say, no, you couldn't have been. It's impossible. There was something there that you didn't have, because if you were really a Christian, you would still be one. So there's got to be something you didn't believe, or you didn't repent properly, or there's something you didn't do that so you didn't receive the Holy Spirit, you were never properly born again. And you tell them, no, I believed all that. I believed in Jesus. I believed everything they're saying you need to believe, and you're doing everything you say they need you to do, but their theology doesn't allow it. So therefore, you must be wrong. You were never a Christian. When in your heart, I know in my heart that I was, and I would never tell somebody, that I know what's in your heart.
No, they're basically saying they can read minds at that point.
Well, they're saying, hey, the Bible says you weren't, so therefore I'm going to go with the Bible, and therefore you're wrong, or you're lying, or you're deluded.
Exactly. And it would also mean that there could be reasons that they're wrong.
Yeah, that's thing. It's hard to. So they're questioning. I don't think you would question Nephilim Free's sincerity about his beliefs, even though I would see. Even though I think I would say someone like him, I think there's definitely doubts in his mind. There's definitely part of him that realizes that this is very dubious at best, but he's got so much time invested into it. It's who he is. It's where everybody knows him. To think someone's just going to throw all that away and admit they were wrong is quite a tall thing to ask for a lot of people.
It reminds me of, I'm blanking on the name, but it's for ex-pastors. The Clergy Project. Wonderful organization that works with different members of clergy who have been, I have preached for 30 years, and on the 31st year I was like, oh goddess, I do not believe this stuff. And it's like, what do I do? This is my living. This is my everything.
Yeah, I remember. It was a while ago, maybe even when I was still a Christian. I saw an article. I think it was a pastor who he was a believer, and he said that he I don't know how exactly he got to it, but he said he decided to try to live as an atheist for, I don't know, 6 months or a year, and just to see what it was like, or just to live as if, God wasn't real. And I don't think he went back to being a Christian. I think he just stayed an atheist after that.
Wow.
They would say, oh, well, he probably had doubts beforehand if he was willing to do something like that. I don't know. Just an interesting side note.
Well, it also brings me back to, you said ministry. I feel like we're not only counter proselytizing, they would call us evangelical atheists. That's what and I like when, once again, I love when they use that pejoratively, but it kind of is what we're doing. But in my eyes, and I wanted to work this in the speech, but it always just sounded weird. It's just like, you want to put a point that what we're doing specifically isn't trying to go to people and like bash them over the head. We're not trying to point a gun to their head. In fact, and we see it in Russia, when you do that, the Eastern Orthodox Church just pop right back up. There really is only one way to that we're going to desecularize people, and it's through thousands and thousands of hours of this stuff, and trying to get people in all sorts of countries to secularize.
I mean, and looking at my own experience and everything, and that's what happened. It wasn't like any one day. It was years and years of, listening to videos on YouTube, reading articles, reading books, listening to debates, and each one, maybe it plants a little seed of doubt. Like you realize, like, ooh, that is a really good point, and the answers that Christianity has for it are really, really weak. I want to believe them, but they're just not very convincing to me. But you just kind of shrug it off and you move on, and you maybe later develop a rationalization for it. But after a while, those little tiny seeds of doubt, they really start to add up, and when it becomes something that you just can't ignore anymore, and you have to come to a resolution. And even though you might want this God to be real, do you have any good reason to think that he is? Can you resolve all these problems that you see with his existence? No. I mean, and then it just becomes about being honest with yourself and coming to terms with who you are and what you believe. It can be a hard thing for people.
Yeah. And I also, I would say there was never like a single point for me either. It was more of a gradual process. I mean, my joke normally is that, I was an inch deep intellectually when you're a kid. You just, you care about simple subjects. You're playing video games, and you care about movies, and your friends, even when you're being sent to things like I was, that's Hebrew school. And, I saw a picture of Israel many times, and I didn't really even know what it was. I didn't even think about it. And it wasn't until like even my 30s until you really it's just like, I don't know, it's just what they send you there. It's like, that's a cool thing. You learn about another country, and culturally it gets in you, but slowly you start to get doubts. I think I said I remember only one prayer, and it's such a stereotype that it almost sounds like I was making it up, because I prayed for key. I had lost a key, and I was like, holy shit, if I cannot find the key, I won't be able to get home. But then it takes you about 10 years to go, I got that prayer, but then there was a bunch of people in this state, in this country, and around the world that had like deeply bad viruses, flesh-eating viruses, and all sorts of horrible things. But he had my back on that key.
Yeah, and I look up to people like Matt Dillahunty, people like Aaron Ra, and the legends of atheism, Dawkins, Hitchens, Sam Harris, people like that. But it was also even just watching videos, tons of videos from smaller accounts, people you don't even remember over the years, where you just picked up a little bit of a little bit of information from, and you meld that into your worldview, and you consider it and digest it, and it all tends to add up. But being younger, I was not an I liked Christianity. I liked what it taught. It gave me a lot of peace and comfort. And it's not anything I wanted not to be true. I wanted it definitely to be true. To me, in a way, it made life a lot more interesting because, to me, the idea that Jesus is coming back and you're going to be part of all that. And, God's got all these plans for you and the 1,000-year. I mean, I was really interested in all that. It was a part of my life. It was what I considered was a certain future. This is what's going to happen, and
I don't think
when you
I
start
can
to make
appreciate that because I never had. I'm sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
It's just that's
Judaism's a little different. Yeah.
It's just funny because you're talking and it's making me realize that it's just like I never thought that I was gonna have an afterlife, and so I don't feel like I'm missing anything. But I guess it's hard. But see, I'm trying to think. It must be devastatingly hard to think you're going to get a second life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Christian. They don't fully come to terms with mortality and death because they sidestep it by pretending that it's just transitioning to a different phase of life. That's all that it is. You're not really dying. You're not really gone forever. You're just leaving this earth and going somewhere else to live. And yeah.
Yeah, I think because it's a sore subject, they allow it to be squishy. It's why heaven is such like a vague frigging concept to begin with. It's if you don't think about it that much, it's just nice. And then if you're about to die, you get to think, okay, I'm going to the fuzzy cloud place. But
I mean, even Catholics, like I've seen accounts from, because Catholics believe something a little different, because there are scriptures in the Bible that seem to indicate some type of penance after death for your sins. So the Catholic theology is that if you ask for forgiveness for your sins, they'll be forgiven. But if you die and you haven't done penance for all your sins, then you would go to purgatory, which is not hell, but it's kind of like a place where you purge your sins. Different people say it's physical pain that you go through or mental anguish. There's something that happens there after you die that prepares you to enter heaven, because they would say you can't just take some dirty, rotten sinner and they die and boom, they're just in heaven. So it would be, at the time of death for a Catholic, it could be a very fearful thing, because as soon as you die, then you go to purgatory, which could be a very painful or very stressful experience. And depending on how badly you lived your life, you could be there for, I mean, they used to say millions of years. I don't think you could be there for quite a while, purging your sins. So the Catholics, even though they're dying and the priest is doing their last rites and they're getting forgiven of their sins, but usually they will still end up having to go to purgatory. So it can still be a fearful thing. The only exception would be to that is if you were not Christian before that. So if you were, and this is what the missionaries used to do when they would go to these tribes, and these tribes would be getting ready to execute somebody, or these cannibal tribes would be actually getting ready to eat somebody, and the priests, of course, would try to save their soul. And then, according to Catholic theology, they would baptize them, and they would go straight to heaven because the baptism would cleanse them completely of sin, including the so they wouldn't have to go to purgatory in that case. But that's just a Catholic teaching. It's just, yeah.
And it's interesting how it's changed. I think they got rid of purgatory.
No, the Catholic churches they do still hold
still
the
do it?
purgatory. Yeah,
Because
yeah. I
there
mean,
was at
they're
one
not
point.
dogmatic about it anymore. They don't really, liberal Catholicism doesn't really, hold to anything. But if you talk to most priests, especially the ones that are, not 25, but yeah, they'll tell you that it's
The
real.
older one. Interesting. Yeah, and I find, I had to learn about the schisms. Like I really didn't understand the difference between Protestantism and Catholicism until the past few years and deep diving.
Yeah.
But just all the wars, and it's weird, they both have their ups and downs, I find, in debating each different sect.
Definitely. I for a long time I was reading and studying the differences between the sects, the Protestant, Catholicism, and Orthodox, and I was always raised as a Protestant, so we were always told that Catholicism was basically crazy and all the stuff they believe is wrong. Then when I actually started reading and say, okay, they actually do have justification for a lot of things they believe, but like it's fan fiction, it's not an actual one is right or one is wrong. It's really just a matter of opinion. They're just looking at the same thing and the same book and coming up with different versions of it. But it's interesting.
And yeah, I was going to ask you what religion or what you were raised in.
Well, I was the first church I went to was a Lutheran church. That was when I was very young, and then I went to that was in Miami. It was called Holy Cross Lutheran. They had a school there, and my dad wanted me to go to because he didn't like the public schools down in Miami, so he wanted me to go to school there at the private school. So I went through kindergarten and most of first grade at that school. And then when my parents separated, we moved up north, and then we were going to a Baptist church up there and we went to Baptist churches for a while. And then I actually did for a little bit go to was still going to Baptist church, but also practicing a different version of it called Messianic Judaism, which if you know Nicholas Whitmore, Proclaimer of Messiah, he's and Mr. Batman, they're Torah observant. I don't think they call themselves Messianic Jews, but they do read the Old Testament, the Jewish Torah, and they believe that a lot of those rules apply to them, and that they need to that's what they should be doing. They basically, you should live like you're Jewish, but you also believe in Jesus, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I find it interesting. The different sects have different relations to Judaism. Some want to take it more on board. So I debate with I've debated with theists who say Jesus was not a Jew. So it's like okay, wide range.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing with fan fiction. You've got 1,000 different denominations, 1,000 different opinions,
and purity tests. I mean, it's everyone saying I have it. No, mine.
And the thing is, if you read the Old Testament or the New Testament, I'm sorry, when God sends the Holy Spirit and tells them that the Holy Spirit's going to teach them everything and lead them to truth, yet you can't find two Christians who agree on pretty much anything. It really has to make you, what is the Holy Spirit doing? Is he the least effective communicator in the world? Because he's trying to tell everybody what the truth is and lead them in that direction, but he's very ineffective if he's even there.
So I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Going on anti-theism and going, I'm going to give you two pet peeves that were given to me by Jeff D and Matt Dillahunty, and I'm going to tell you mine, and I'm going to ask you for yours. But I think they're good ones, because once you're convinced of them, they're hard not to be pissed, and then it's authentic because it's true. But both of those, so I would say, I'll start with Matt's, because his everyone knows, I think his thing is slavery, and I think that is a really obvious one. I think because it's how it almost I can't imagine, but I feel like it would almost feel painful trying to defend this.
Slavery in the Bible
Have any
as
thoughts
immoral.
on?
Yeah.
And then my other one. Do you remember Jeff D?
It sounds familiar.
He
Refresh my memory a little bit.
one of the old hosts on the Atheist Experience. Everyone here watching, you should look up Jeff D, because Jeff D had his thing, just like Matt has. I would say he's brilliant and elegant on slavery. I would say I've never seen someone more angry about hell than Jeff D, and he really took theists to task. And he really made me think about hell, because once again, that's not a Jewish concept, and it really made me really think about the concept of forever and torture.
Yeah.
I know either of those.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
I guess
Is that what you have? You've adopted that's your two pet peeves with religion?
I would say I've gained those two pet peeves. So I would say any comments on that, and then do you have any specific pet peeves that really sink into why we are anti-theist?
Well, yeah, Jeff D, the whole thing with hell, like I've said before, I mean, just imagine, somebody spending 800 quadrillion years in hell, and then coming up to him and telling him, sorry, you're just getting started. You're here another one, and you're going to be doing that forever. And like I said before, I mean, I don't know what the benefit that would be to anybody. Any God who would do anything like that to anybody is not worthy of worship. And I mean, you could take like the worst human being alive, and I've even said before, even someone like Hitler, dousing him with gasoline, lighting him on fire, I wouldn't get any joy out of seeing him suffer like that. It wouldn't do anything to me to sit there and watch him suffer. You would want to put him out of his misery, because it's not going to undo any of the bad things that he did just for him to suffer a little bit more before he dies. It doesn't help anybody.
And it's that times forever. I don't think they completely contextualize forever. I think they shrug that word off, just like they shrug off, just like they throw words at us like nothing. They love to shrug that off.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, it was a great marketing tool for a long time, because it's such a terrible consequence. Like, it gets into Pascal's wager. I mean, if there's even a trillionth of a % chance that that's true, wouldn't you want to do anything you could to avoid that? And I think that's, it's been a tremendous boon for Christianity over the years, because it's just such a terrible thing to contemplate, that even if it's remotely possibly true, you wouldn't want anybody to, go through it. So even if you don't really believe, you might want to just try and make yourself believe, because it's a pretty bad alternative. And then, of course, Matt Dillahunty with the slavery, and of course, well, the thing that sticks out to me about that is how religion evolves, and how, even if today you asked if Americans, or most Christian people, if they thought chattel slavery in the antebellum South was a good thing, almost all of them would say no. Yet at the time, Christians were defending slavery based on the Bible, because, even though the Bible version might be a little nuanced compared to some of the other versions of slavery, again, that's not setting a very high bar for your God, who is supposed to be the ultimate moral arbiter in the universe. And his version of slavery is, maybe slightly less cruel than some of the other versions. That's not, that doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Yeah. Obviously,
you don't understand, James. It's better slavery. It's slavery 2.0.
It's better slavery, yeah. Like the Romans, they could beat their slaves so hard with a rod, if they died right then and there, it would be fine. Whereas with the God slavery, with the Bible slavery, they would have to at least live a couple days before they succumbed to their wounds and died. Which, I don't. I don't know what to tell you there.
They really do look down on the pagans, don't they? They really shit on, even though we're Western society. They're like, yeah, they found it all a Rome and all that other shit.
Well,
But then,
and the Bible does say that slavery would act, and this is what they used. One justification of it, the Bible says there will always be slavery.
Yeah.
It does. It says there'll always be slavery,
I-
and you say, well, there's no slavery today, so they would have to say, oh, well, I mean, people in jail, they're functionally slaves, so it's kind of like the same thing, right? There's illegal pockets of slavery that exist in the world, but doesn't really seems like the Bible is saying that there'd be an entire class of people, because the book of Revelation says that the Antichrist will make everybody come forward to get his mark free and bond. So it seems like he's saying there's going to be a class of people that are bound to labor and bondage, which is slavery, even though we don't really have that. But they said, well, the slavery, it has to be there because it's going to be there up until the end,
Yeah. Up until
those are even though we don't have to really have slavery today, and even though that is really, it's a debate point, nobody's arguing revival of slavery, but it does illustrate the lengths that people will go and what religion will make otherwise good people defend something that is pretty hard to defend, a pretty cruel, brutal, terrible institution like slavery, and they'll defend it because their book seems to say it's okay.
Yeah, and I would agree with them that slavery exists. It's that it's not moral. It's like that your dude, your main guy, the all-knowing creator of the universe, is like, yeah, slaves, cool.
And even his prophet, even the New Testament says, you know what, if you're a slave, be the best slave that you can be. Serve your master as you would serve God.
And I'm gonna let Terra back in.
Go ahead.
All right, we're talking about pet peeves. I got a pet peeve.
Absolutely. What's on
Well,
your
I'm
mind?
not an anti-theist, but it is an agnostic point of view, especially my particular bias. But whenever I think about basically the issues about, because like whenever in Christianity, almost generally every sector, like whenever you do a sin, you go to hell for an eternal period of time. And I think James said this, like, I don't think Christians understand eternity. No, I agree with him. Like I really don't think they understand the word eternity and infinity, if I'm being honest.
No, I don't think they do.
I mean, to watch someone suffer and to just be indifferent or passive to that or indifferent to it, you'd have to be a sadist, right?
Yeah, and like for me, the two sort of critiques, because I already know I'm a sinner, are actually something that I think were basically out of my control, and that is my sexuality, because I'm pansexual. And then,
so am I. Welcome on board.
Oh, wonderful. So, but in all honesty, I don't think I need to explain this, because, like, it's we get a lot of shit in the Bible, and honestly, it kind of gets hard to read. Like, even though I'm an agnostic.
Hey, and I hate. I don't know why I hate to say it, but that's you're over the line. I have in my head like this little invisible line, and it's basically if I can get you, not you, but if I can get a theist over the deistic line, I'm done. Like I don't want to argue with Steve McRae. Steve McRae's on my team. Like if you're an agnostic, you're on my team.
Because if you're an agnostic, you've heard all the Christian God claims, and you're saying you're not convinced by them, and that's really what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, honestly, it kind of goes back to, like, I think it's fiction, but I write fiction. So, I can criticize God's world building because, like, in all honesty, I hate that we, we're not immortal like God is supposedly. That's just unfair. Come on. Like, I wouldn't mind being immortal here. Like, I'll love to explore the galaxy. Like, even if I have to expend, like, 150,000 years to do it, I'll do it. Yeah, fuck it.
I know that's much longer.
But I think after some point, you would probably, once you've done everything there is to do, every which way, 1 trillion times, you'd probably just want to, you probably wouldn't want to be immortal anymore.
Well, then I'll probably just take a rotating black hole to another universe through a rotating white hole as my exit, and then keep doing that for infinity.
if that works.
I'm naturally curious. I'm not gonna lie. Like, even if it is to a fault, because like I do admit that like at this point I'm kind of going logical absurdism. You know what I mean? But I still think it's kind of like an interesting thought experiment.
But
because like
you'd still have to say eternity is a long time, and the thing is, with with the infinite universe is that everything will repeat itself. So theoretically, eventually, matter can only arrange itself in so many different ways. You'd start to see the same things over and over again. Might take you 1 trillion years, but you'd probably end up running to the same thing you saw before.
Possibly, but I do want to like sort of like go back to what you were saying earlier. Like, I don't think they understand eternal punishment, which is Christians.
And can I ask you, doesn't it make it better when you don't believe supernatural things? Doesn't it make fantasy and sci-fi better? To me, I'm really into like even the show Supernatural, and I like all these different fantasy and fictional stories because I know they're not true. Like that we can edit them and they were made by someone.
Yeah, I think that's the big appeal of it. Like, by the way, my name, that's my pen name. I mean, I'm still writing my book, but I decided to take a break because, like, I had to come back in here discussing eternity. Because I admit that, like, I mean, in all honesty, like, whenever I think about eternal punishment, burning forever, that just sounds horrible. Like, at that point, I wonder, like, whenever I hear the sort of, is God like the eternal good that supposedly Christianity likes to, state? At this point, I'm like, is this eternal good? I don't think so. Like, at all.
See, I mean, that's one of the reasons they justified burning heretics at the stake is because, well, I mean, once they die, they're going to be burning anyway, so we might as well just kick off the party, get them started, right? And by the way, if other people see that and it deters them from being heretics, then they won't burn in hell either. So therefore, it's a fundamental good at the end of the day because they're just going to be burning 5 minutes extra before they would start burning for eternity anyway, right?
Yeah,
it's not really that much worse, right? I mean, hey.
I mean, hell, like, you don't even have to be, like, in our ilk to be burned alive by Christians. Like, Joan of Arc was a Christian, and she was burned alive at the stake, and that was
for heresy, yeah, because she wore men's clothing. The Inquisition, how that worked is you could get, if they caught you in heresy one time where you believed something you weren't supposed to believe, you could abjure, you could say, I'm sorry, and then they would forgive you. And if they caught you doing another heresy, they could still forgive you and you could still go to heaven, but they would still kill you before they would send you to heaven right then and there, or in that case to purgatory because they were Catholics. So she would have gone to purgatory after that. But I would say for me, like one of the things I think is the worst is how it makes good people and otherwise intelligent people believe these crazy, bizarre things, like as far as young Earth creationism, and then you shoehorn in from there all these very odd moral things that we get from Christianity. And whereas if there was no religion, if we were doing this all on our own, you would never have to have some of these battles and debates. You would never cross a lot of these bridges. If we didn't have a book that said slavery was good, we wouldn't have to sit here and debate about it. We could all just say, hey, that's pretty fucked up. Let's never do that again.
It's the Bertrand Russell quote: for good people doing good is normal. Bad people doing bad is normal. But for good people to do bad, that takes religion.
And if you can look at all the evidence for evolution and deny that, and deny the evidence for the age of the Earth, then you can be pretty much pulled into believing pretty much anything at that point.
Right. I mean, like you mentioned Pascal's wager before, and I actually kind of want to get into like the actual truth or possibility of truth of God here, because like we hear this argument a lot. At least I do, because I think it's the strongest, but also the most ridiculous. But like, whenever I think about knowledge, whenever we think about like Pascal's wager, it's like, okay, so you're betting your life that God doesn't exist, and if you believe he exists, you get eternal reward or whatever. And if you believe he doesn't exist, you get eternal punishment or whatever. It gets a little more complicated. but like it's not really a 50-50 coin flip, I think. Because like if we're gonna like adjust like our worldview to like knowledge on a scientific basis, I expect our knowledge to evolve over like the next century, over the next millennia. And like my perspective of knowledge is going to change my sort of like belief on whether this quote unquote wager exists. If whenever I hear it's 50-50, I think it's more like, no, it's more like 0.0001% or something. Like I can go on forever.
Almost infinite. That is
Yeah.
the downside of Pascal's wager. They are thinking, they're trying to make it a dichotomy. It's Christianity or not Christianity. It's not Christianity or Christianity. It's Christianity, atheism, and the infinite amount of religions that we could make up.
Or like the flying spaghetti monster, you know? I've heard them all.
Also, I'm going to add Gary to the stream.
What if Islam is true? Then you'd still be in trouble, right?
Exactly.
Or Hinduism or paganism or the Kemetic religions back in Egypt. It's an unlimited number of alternate beliefs.
The right one may not have even happened yet. Might be a billion years from now, right? So keep waiting. How are you, Gary?
I'm great, cheers.
What were your feelings? Did you want to speak on the debate? Did you want to speak on the topic?
Sure. We've talked before.
No, yeah, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we had a discussion, I believe it was with Godless Girl and Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a theist, Gary? Are you a Christian?
It was on Monday debates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Christian, I'm a Quaker. So
sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to point out, so here's my position. I think that anti-theism and anti-atheism are bigotry because you're trying to base down a very complex issue like what is causing harm in the world to a very simplistic thing of, well, it's religion. Well, no, there's a couple like social economic factors. There's tons of it like out there of what causes harm. You know, maybe it could be for example, just going off the top of my head, it could be, for example, economic input into scientific fields hasn't been done the way it should do. It could be education in certain fields hasn't been promoted the way it should do. Maybe the amount of immigration coming into the fields and that the natural population doesn't feel that it should be going into those fields. Again, there's tons of factors that you're not taking into account, but you try to find this very simplistic one of, oh, it's religion, which again doesn't impact that anybody's imperative to do anything, because there are tons of religious people who go into science, who go into education, who go into economy, go into every other field, because again, they don't pose a threat to our beliefs.
Can I steelman you, but in a particularly different way, Gary?
Sure.
Yep, we'll go around table. Yep, sounds good.
Sure. And also because like I unfortunately have to leave. I'm trying to like write a book to get out of poverty, but that's irrelevant.
No, always a good thing.
I think that and I think I just lost it. Gosh darn it.
Dude,
Gary, can you elucidate your earlier point, your very last point, because it's related to that one?
The social economic issues that go into it, like for people putting money into it, or immigration, that people don't feel, the natural population doesn't feel that it can get jobs in a certain field sometimes.
Oh, right. Well, it was actually a point earlier, but it was so there was a mathematician from the Islamic Golden Age that I'm currently trying to like study because I think he's a really genius guy. His name's Al-Khwarizmi, which, fun fact, is the Al-Khwarizmi is the English source word for algorithm, because he is one of the first people to write a mathematical algorithm. And I, as an agnostic, I think of like Ramanujan's quote, like a equation is irrelevant unless it signifies a thought of God. I don't know. I really don't care. But my point is that I don't really know if this sort of logically follows, because it seems like that if we make these distinctions between, like, because you're a Quaker, Like, okay, well, like I could buy into a possibly omnipotent God if they're like Islamic. They may have created Al-Khwarizmi. I don't know, but like I think that like it's comes off kind of special pleading, like a special pleading fallacy that we're sort of like basically coming up with like anti-theism and anti-atheism, for in your own words, is like equivocal in moral nature, because I don't think they're not. Because like I think that like you could be, I do agree that you could be like sort of like in the field of science and the field of math and be religious or not religious. I think that personally that factor is kind of irrelevant. Like it, like for me, it's like, again, I'm an agnostic. I don't agree with Ramanujan's take. So like, but I still have value, I guess you could say, his work in mathematics, for example. But neither here nor there.
Okay.
Do you want to respond, James?
Well, I would just say that, yeah, there are lots of great people in all fields of science who are Christians, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can be a Christian. You can be a good geologist. You can be a Christian. You can be a good biologist and astronomer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the problem comes in is when you allow your beliefs in that to interfere with your scientific work. And there's lots of great scientists, and that doesn't happen. There's fundamentalist pastors who are geologists, and they believe in God, they love God and whatever, but they still accept what science teaches. We're talking specifically about people who say that their version of Christianity invalidates the science. It's more correct than the science. So they don't want they don't want to work their theology around the truth. They want to work the truth around their theology and make that work. But I don't think anti-theism is to say that theism is the root cause of all problems in society. There's tons of problems that are not related to theism at all. And even, in fact, on the other side of that, there are some positive aspects to theism, like people who are dealing with depression or with drug addiction and things like that. They can benefit from theism, even if it's purely placebo. That still could be a net benefit for them. But the anti-theist, what we're saying is that overall, is it more of a good or more of a negative thing to society? Because it's pulling from both directions. And so I think we're talking about today, some of the bad aspects of it, some of the things that it does that, we would consider to be negative in society.
And so I agree with what both of they said, and let me just go over like 2 or 3 points, and then I'll just kick it over to Gary. So my thing is, the first thing I'll point out is there's a difference between anti-theism and I would say, like, now we're playing with words, but an anti-theist as like, I'm not against theists, I'm against theism. Like, there's no one on the planet that I hate. I welcome everyone. I will go out and have a drink, go karaoke with anybody. It's that this is more like, it's like an intellectual battle to me, more than it is like, oh man, these stupid theists. It's like, I really, and this will bring me to my other point, is I really want to stop superstition. And it really, it hurts. It's almost like a personal attack when I'm telling theists that I'm sure it feels like it, that the deeply held thing, something that is sure an anchor point in your life, is a superstition. I'm sure it hurts, but I'm not trying to. And so that brings me to my final point, is what do you mean by bigotry? What is it we shouldn't stop debating, or is it? And then, yep, you got as much time as you want, Gary.
Okay.
Before I go, can I elucidate that point very quickly? Like, for example, I would classify myself as a non-anti-theist. I'm not opposed to the possibility of like non-theism gods. In fact, I'm basically I don't know how to phrase this because it leads into so many different things. But basically, what matters now is that like I'm 1/4 Native American, Aztec to be particular, and the Aztec gods they're basically a death metal band because like the Aztec religion was not really a pleasant one. But I'm not opposed to like the idea of let's say I guess you could say God. I'm an agnostic because I don't know if Huitzilopochtli is more valid than Yahweh from the Christian Bible, or like let's say the I don't know, like Shiva in Hinduism. I don't know. Like that's my position.
And just really quickly, and I'll hand it back over to Gary. I think this is kind of like a split in the non-believer community. I think there are some atheists that feel very strongly we shouldn't be anti-theists. I think that some of our greatest defenders and deconverters are anti-theists. So it's the one thing we debate in the non-believing community. And then yep, Gary.
That's cool. Okay, I'll explain the bigotry part first. Okay, because again, it's about the fact that people believe, based upon, again, you were saying stuff like people don't think about it, people do this, people do that. Again, not one group, people in a certain group do not do the same thing. People come to it through different reasons. I've came to my beliefs through my own reasons. Now, you may disagree with them, that's fine. And again, I have nothing against people having discussions or debates because that's how I believe we get better. I also believe it's a good thing to have diverse thought on any issue because that's how we get to the truth, even if it is something like religion. Because while you may not agree with that, there are people out there who, maybe it's the truth, maybe it's not. Again, I'm to the one. You can say whatever you want about my beliefs. Again, I've come to them by my own reasons. Again, as I'm sure you've come to your beliefs by yours. Again, and nothing you can say can insult me because I'm mature enough to say, do you know what? I don't know everything. Nor do I claim to.
And I would say we're not trying to insult you. Like
No, not at all.
If anything, that's what gets in the way is we are telling people their deeply held beliefs are wrong and it's like if that's such an anchor point that if you wake up every day praying and go to bed every day praying and you think you have an afterlife and you have this plan, you have all these things. I mean, I can imagine it's a big deal.
And that's why I said I interpret a lot of even the hostile behavior we get from theists as being defensive rather than offensive because they have this views that are so at the core of their worldview that it's very scary when you're planting these seeds of doubt in their mind that they're not comfortable with. They don't want you planting those seeds there. So they're lashing out at you, but you have to expect that when you're telling people very difficult things.
No, but what I was saying is that I'm not offended because, again, Jesus says that we should answer all questions asked of us. Okay? And that's how I try and be as honest as I can. If I don't know something, I'll say, honestly, I don't know. Because that's the only way we should be, which is honest. Again, I have no problem with you questioning my beliefs or say that you find them silly. That's fine. That's your opinion. I have my right to say that I find anti-theism distasteful because that's my opinion and my right to say so. It doesn't mean that I think you two are bad people. I just find the idea of disliking somebody or something just because you don't like it just to be bad distasteful. But again, because then you have to try and apologize away any good it does to that was just human beings or that was just this, that was the well, can't you just do that for the bad as well? It's sort of like it's hypocritical to me. Again, and by the way, I'll say this: I think it's bullshit that atheists in America, are least trusted or whatever, or find it difficult to get jobs or can't get to certain positions of power. I think that's nonsense.
Hey, I'll take that, and it is.
There should be no religious test in office, but there is. It's very hard to get in. I mean, I'm sure there are atheists in office that have to nominally claim to be theists, but for political reasons. But that's just the current political climate we're in.
Yeah, and as I said, I don't think that should be the case. Again, I'm not going to vote for somebody or not vote for somebody based on their religious beliefs. I would only do so if, let's say, for example, they were an atheist and they said, right, I think that all religious people should be sent into a mental institution or prison. Or vice versa, if they were saying like all atheists should be sent into a mental home or prison, then I would vote for it based upon religious reasons. Or if, let's say, for example, there was somebody who's saying stuff like there were annihilationists, which when they believe that they should blow up Israel to bring on the second coming, then I would vote for it based upon religious reasons. But those are the religious reasons that I could think of to vote for somebody.
And I would just say we were talking about this earlier. I think in James and our eyes, to do it forcefully doesn't work. Like in short term it works, but you see that the Eastern Orthodox Church popped up right back up the moment that the USSR fell. So in our eyes, the only way we can do it is by doing this and by having intellectual debates.
And even we see it in communist China now with the repression of Muslims and with other religious minorities there.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it in the USSR, how the church went underground and it did survive. And it's not something you're going to be able, nor is it something you should try to eradicate forcefully. It's withering and dying on its own. And that's just the natural course that it's taking. But, definitely shouldn't be something that we try to force along. And the other side of that is, I have no problem voting for someone who believes in God or a member of a religious organization or based on their political beliefs. The two are totally separate.
Mm-hmm.
I would vote for a theist or I would vote for an atheist. I vote for who is going to enact the policies that I agree with the most.
Okay, but you were saying stuff like, for example, you were saying that people have to compartmentalize science and stuff. I said, again, I fully support what science says. Like, I fully support...
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like, there are tons of Christians in all the sciences who do very good work, who are award-winning scientists, and I would never take that away from them. It's just the few who get the attention, especially from the young earthers, because they want to buck the trend and they want to challenge these widely held scientific consensus on things like age of the earth, like the geology as far as the flood goes. You do get these quacks in there who put their religious beliefs ahead of reality, and that's dangerous. But most of them are don't do that. So
I agree.
And can I ask, Gary, we have a problem, at least in America. One of the main things is like this evolution, the global anti-global warming creation. I mean, are you I'm trying to think how to say this. I mean, not a theistic evolutionist. Are you a supporter of science, Gary? That's really what I'm asking.
Where's Gary from? Is he from the UK?
I'm from the UK.
Okay, that's what I thought. Just making sure.
I'm from the Northwest, so I'm from Manchester, so that's where the accent comes from. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, I'm pro science. Yeah, I know that the world is round. I know that vaccines work. I know that evolution / common descent is true. I mean, to be honest with you, as I said, one of the things that turned me on to believing in God was a scientific theory. I know you might not believe that, but it's true.
Well, go ahead and tell us what it was.
String theory.
String theory? Okay. So you're into physics, I guess?
Not really. I'm an English grad, but again, I read books about it because I was interested in the subject.
Like a amateur physicist, you're interested in it, but you don't have any degrees in it, or
no. As I said, like I like it on like a pop level, like to read. I mean, that's more into it than I am, but that's because he's an engineer for 40 years or something like that. So he's more interested in stuff like that. I'm more into like fiction and stuff like that, but that's because I'm an English grad. So
yeah, I've heard people say usually when Christians say science convinced them, usually they get into quantum theory, quantum mechanics, and things like that, because that's But I guess string theory too, there's a lot of things we don't know about it. So there's a lot of areas in there where, there's a lot of gaps in our knowledge. And, what do people fill in gaps in knowledge with, Amy?
That seems to be the theme 2 weeks in a row.
No, it's just nothing to be gaps. I read Michio Kaku's book on it, and it seemed to be very clear to my understanding of it. Again, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I know everything, because obviously I don't. Because some like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Sean
Michio
Carroll.
Kaku. He's a brilliant man. I've read some of his stuff.
I mean, again, I'm not even going to sit here and say I understood like half of it, because again, because that would be a lie and asinine compared to what these people understand. As I said, I think is that again, and the thing is, I don't think there's anything wrong with inference it from that. Again, I think as long as you're not standing there saying this is absolutely the truth, I think that's where the problems start.
So I would say I'm skeptical but open-minded to string theory, and that at least from the first, I mean, all those things you said, I mean, if all the theists are like that here, we would have much less of a problem. But it really is almost like a different, I don't want to say a different world, but it's just a whole string. And I was just looking up how the 6,000 years thing, it's really like a new thing, it's only, and you have to learn that, because in this culture they makes it sound like they've been saying it's been 6,000 years for the past 2,000 years.
Well, I mean, you had your Usher chronology, and I think that was in the 16th or 17th century where he came out with that. And then as
I've been suffering ever since.
Well, then as science learned that the universe was much older than that, that the Earth was much older than that, I think for a while, a lot of Christians, they kind of put that Usher chronology on the back burner and said, well, it looks like we're dealing with something much older here, so how can we work our theology around that? But then I think in the past maybe 50 years is where that we've seen a resurgence in that fundamentalism to go back to that Usher chronology, that direct, literal, word-for-word interpretation of the Old Testament that we've seen now rear its head, and which we fight against on YouTube.
Yep.
I was just going to say, well, as I said, the reason I'm against just any sort of thing like this has been because of my upbringing. Now, again, I'm not sure both of your ages, but I'm 38. So when I was in high school, it was 1992. So, and now for those who are too young to remember, that was just after or the tail end of the AIDS pandemic. When they were calling it the gay disease and stuff like that, and I saw a lot of people saying a lot of homophobic stuff because of that. And it was totally secular because of the whole AIDS thing, and that has probably shaped the way I see things. That I dislike bigotry in any form because, again, there heterosexual people getting it. Again, it wasn't necessarily quote unquote just a gay disease. It was it was people being unsafe with sex, being unsafe with blood transfusions, being unsafe with a lot of other things. And the thing is that that really shaped my views on things like that. And then again, I've seen a lot of Muslims here, eat a lot of shit because again, a lot of papers I hear will lie about them. And again, when you say that all Christians want to speak about religions, I'll always speak up for Muslims because I think it's horseshit that they get harassed for wearing a burqa when, again, it's a women's choice. If they want to wear a burqa, why does it impact you?
No, absolutely. We have to walk a very tight rope because on one hand, we are trying to say we're trying to destroy the religion, and on the other, I value the person very, very deeply, and I Someone I want to protect a girl walking down the street in a hijab. It's not about her, and it really is. So once again, the tightrope. It's just like it's a weird situation that I come from a Jewish background, and I'm trying to get rid of Judaism, and you know, I have on one hand that I'm trying to get rid of the religion, but then on the other hand, I have, you know, the Nazis and the people who legitimately hate Jews and are trying, you know, and have in the past tried to get rid of them. And so I know which side I'm on when that happens. Like it's not a hard choice.
Well, can I ask a question?
Does that make sense?
No. I feel that you got good intentions rather than bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely do. But do you not feel that those bad intentions are directed in the wrong place? That your problem seems to be with people who do evil with it rather than the religion itself. It seems like but there are evil people who do bad things with, let's say, for example, veganism or gun ownership. There's evil people who like, you know, don't take the care the stuff with. I mean, again, I come from a gun owning country, so again, I hate speaking about another's culture, but I know that gun culture in your country is different than my own, and I know that, like, I don't know what the population of gun ownership is, but it's quite high. And I'm sure there's people out there who take great care, you know, clean it, make sure that it's in a good safe, you know, make sure that they're locked and all that stuff, or keep it at a gun club, you know, and take it for target shooting. Then there's the sloppy idiots who put it in their pants and shoot their, you know, privates off with it, you know.
But I will. Yeah. I agree with everything you just said, but I will add on, in our defense, I find a lot of the actual bigotry comes from, I mean, you know where I'm going here, comes from the other theists. I mean, a lot of it comes from either the Christians that I would say almost indirectly think they want to go to war with Islam.
Well, I would just say I think a lot of the Christians, they were really, you know, in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, when the AIDS epidemic came out, and it was predominantly affecting the gay community. I think there were a lot of they were kind of like, okay, this is God's, you know, justice. He's punishing these people for doing something that God told them not to do, you know. But that didn't really last forever, where it was confined mostly to the gay community, and, you know, there were reasons that made it spread there a little quicker initially, but now it affects everybody, so it's not really confined anymore. And we realize the mistakes that were made by the public health authorities in the earlier stages of that outbreak, that probably were due to anti-gay bigotry, because it was viewed that, hey, it's doing the Lord's work, who cares, you know, it's just affecting them. And we, you know, I think most people realize that was the wrong way to go about it. Yeah. What was the point you just made, Amy?
Well, I just wanted to say that the funny thing about the AIDS epidemic and things like that is there's so many people that try to anthropomorphize viruses, and it's just so funny how it can be defeated by wearing protection. And one day we're going to have a vaccine for it, and it will be almost non-associated with sex, but it's an easy vessel. People take easy low-hanging fruit and take pot shots. It's getting better, though, I think. We're in this wave now with the trans, but hopefully it gets better.
Okay, but again, what harm is believing in God in general? Let's just go to that causing, because again, people believe in God. Again, majority of them don't cause harm. But again, majority of people will just go about their day, believe in God, go to church, and do whatever.
But in our eyes, it is a superstitious belief. Thus, it's a wrong belief, and then it's how many wrong beliefs do we take on before we're making bad decisions, because we don't act on claims or on 100% certainty. We act on what we believe in.
And it's key to remember that religion is dying on its own, that church attendance is constantly going down, that more and more people are identifying themselves as secular, and that even more and more who do identify as Christians are becoming more tolerant to people like Amy and people like
They're liberalizing.
they're becoming more liberalizing, which is good. It's good. It's like a Christian who accepts science. Yeah, that's good. If you want to say you believe in God, but you also accept science, that's definitely a lot better than someone who says, no, I believe in God, and no, all your science is wrong.
Yeah, because you're not, in our eyes, you're saying, what is the average Joe Schmo that believes in a God and he's not doing anything wrong and he doesn't affect anything? I worry about the aggregate. They work to get books like Pandas and People in our schools that are just books made to just question evolution, and they actively work in a political, social, and cultural means that if there is no pushback, then they just control. That's just it.
I mean, it's hard for us to imagine a time when if you were a scientist and you made a discovery that contradicted the fundamentalist clear reading of the Bible, that was you were in a tough situation, because you couldn't just come out and say that. Like, you couldn't come out and say that the Earth revolves around the sun, because the Bible says something else. So what do you do with that knowledge? You have to suppress it, or you have to release it in code. You have to put it out in secret. It's hard for us to imagine that how things were in centuries past.
Okay, so I'll address both of these points. Right. The idea that people held back stuff is nonsense. It's like, for start, the reason that Galileo got in prison wasn't because he found out that the Earth went around the sun. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that he was a complete and total jerk. That was the problem. He wouldn't let he wouldn't let them look in these microscope. He basically wouldn't let them peer review his stuff. That basically was the issue. He was an absolute jerk. Now again, did he die for that? Absolutely not. But he was a jerk. Second is the problem of people could believe stuff for ages. Again, the thing is that Augustine, you might have heard of him, he said that if science interferes with your reading of the Bible, then your understanding of both is wrong. That's basically what he said.
So Gary, if I could ask, so it pretty much is clear in the Bible that that people convicted of witchcraft should be executed, right?
Well, witchcraft, as we understand it, and witchcraft, what they meant, are two different things.
Well, I mean, witchcraft is witchcraft. I mean,
No.
when was the last time we executed a witch in the first world? I'm not talking about in the third world, but I think it's been well over 100 years. And before that time, they were executing people on a pretty regular basis for that.
Yep.
And we've stopped doing that for over 100 years, and there doesn't seem to be any negative impact of that. I mean, I look out my window, I don't see women flying around on broomsticks. I don't see magical incantations or curses. So it would appear that all those people before that were executed for that died for a superstition, died for basically nothing. And that's in the past, but it's just an example of a harm that the people who were executing these people believe they were doing the Lord's work. They're following the Bible. This person needs to die because they're working for the devil. And good thing we don't do that anymore, right?
I think it's good things that we don't kill anybody anymore, apart from death penalties, which I'm totally against. But again, the thing is that witchcraft, they were talking about Bible was people poisoning people. That's basically what witchcraft back then. It wasn't like pagan or Wicca. Because again, they wouldn't have come across anything
Sounds
like
like
that.
an interpretation.
That's a viewpoint,
No,
but
no,
I think
no,
it
no.
encompasses a little bit more than that.
How could they have known about pagan and Wicca when it's in a different continent?
I mean, occult issues
What
and
was it, magic?
necromancy and sorcery. I mean, that goes back. That's just
No,
not
witchcraft back then
Renaissance
was literally like poison craft. So literally, like, the people who could do the most damage to your population would be one that, like, because especially if you're using like one water supply, which you usually would be in that sort of period of the world, you get poisoned by it. So what would be the best way to poison a population? Water supply. That's even like we do that now, actually.
But we know there were women that were just burned because they're like, it's this woman, and that's why our crops aren't growing. And they're like, if we kill her, the witchcraft's done. The spell is broken.
That was a Western interpretation of a Middle Eastern religion, which again I'm not responsible for, because again it was over 200, 300 years ago.
Yeah,
I'm responsible for what I
good thing
did.
we stopped that. It's a good thing we've evolved, right?
No, but again, I'm not responsible for that. Again, I'm not responsible for what people in my religion have or did do, because again, I'm responsible for what I do. You're responsible for what you do. You're not responsible for what people in your family did. If you or your family killed somebody from 200 years ago, are you responsible for that? No, because you're responsible for what you do.
But do you think there would have been any reason for these people to be killed if the religion was never part of the picture?
People get killed for numerous reasons. Again, in the past, people got killed for wars.
Absolutely. People get killed for all sorts of reasons today, but we don't kill people for witchcraft anymore. So obviously that wouldn't have been a reason to kill people back then, unless the fact that we had religion.
But again, people could have killed them for different reasons. Again, they could have killed them because they had leprosy. People got killed for leprosy back then. We actually have a kill for it now. So people would have got killed for numerous other reasons. Again, it has nothing to do with necessarily their religion.
So then would it be, so if we brought back the death penalty for witchcraft or necromancy today, nobody would additionally be killed because anyone killed for that, they would have just been killed for something else?
Well, I don't think we should kill somebody for any reason, but again, that's my personal belief.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm so you're trying to say that we killed people for all sorts of reasons. Yeah, well, yeah, we did, but
I never said
that was one of the reasons that they killed people. They used to kill people for being gay, and
that was wrong.
Yeah, do you think if that wasn't written in the book that's a bad thing to do, that they would have had no reason to kill them because they're not hurting anybody else?
But again, I don't believe that the book says that.
Well, I mean, that's your interpretation of it, but there's a lot of people that read it and come with a different interpretation. I appreciate you have a nuanced version of it, and that's your right to have that
Jesus
belief.
says nothing about gay people.
Well, again,
he's supposed to be the person we follow. So again, there's no going around that.
Your interpretation of
it.
No.
He literally says nothing. Nothing. Is that zero? Nada. No. Well, nothing.
Wait.
Okay, but there's a lot of people who don't agree with that.
Kill gays? They stoned them to death in the Old Testament.
Yeah, the Old Testament, and even people back then said that even that wasn't that it might be paedophilia.
What might be pedophilia?
What they were talking about.
They weren't.
They were.
It doesn't make that clear in the text that it's for child abuse.
As a man lays with another, like a woman.
Yeah, but actually, they said that the second man was actually a misinterpretation. It was actually boy, because boy and man could be the same word in Hebrew. It just takes I think it's like I'm not sure the exact word, but like in French, where if you have an e at the end, it becomes girl or feminine. I think it's the same in Judaism. That boy and man could be the same word. You just have to add like a little accent on top of it, I think.
And this is the thing when people who have the religious belief, and then they look back at the Bible and it says these things that seem to conflict with their morality and says these horrible things. So you develop nuanced interpretations of it to make it less bad.
This is not my view. This is what Jewish scholars have said. Who are Jewish. Again, like
okay,
they're not the majority of Jewish scholars.
And modern Jewish people are okay with gay people. So they have.
As well.
So modern Jewish people are also looking for a justification to not hate gay people because they don't, because nobody should, right? Nobody should hate gay people. So they have to rationalize it too.
I wish that he would, instead of put a commandment that said thou shalt not be a pedophile. I think that would have been a little bit better than getting gays
if he
killed.
made it clear that if a man lies with a young boy or with a young girl, a child, in
fact, they had words for young. They translate young all the time. They're very specific when the young girls are supposed to be taken. They seem to forget that young word with the guys. That's funny.
No, but let's say this particular passage.
This very specific one where they killed all the gays. They were reading it. They were reading it wrong the whole time. Oh my God! I'm
just telling you what the scholarship says. I've got some Jewish.
Not the majority of Jewish scholarship. You're not going to tell. My whole family is Jewish. I went to Hebrew school. That was not in my passage.
I'm just telling you what they've said. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the right. I'm not saying the wrong. I'm just saying what the current scholarship is.
And see, you sound like a good guy, Gary. I know, just like you said, you can tell I have good intentions. I can tell you have good intentions. I can tell you go out in the world and you try and do good.
Okay.
Because it's just good. It's the same subject. Why are we doing what we do? I have a thing we were talking about, things like slavery and stuff, but can you explain to me the Jesus story? Because we were talking about, to me, it is very simple. It's ritualistic blood sacrifice. And I do not understand how you could kill a guy and it can do anything.
What do you mean explain it? Explain it in what way? Sorry, maybe I'm not understanding the question.
I think she wants to see the substitutionary redemption where...
You mean substitutional atonement?
Yes, I think that's what she's getting at.
Why would you kill someone and think that would do anything?
Okay. But again, the substitute atonement part is the thing that I value with Jesus. It's the everything else. It's the doing good works. It's the healing the sick. It's like helping the poor. It's like doing stuff like that I value. Like when he says that a rich man has what's it? It's a bit funny that a lot of these atheist promoters are rich people, but we won't get into that. It's stuff like that. Again, the thing at the end was to save people from the grave, from Shell, to save people from eternal death. It was to give them life again. Now, again, however you interpret that, again, there have been numerous interpretations. Some people think it's more of it's a spiritual thing in that we go to somewhere else, namely heaven. Some people think it is an actual bodily thing, as in there is no heaven or hell, but it's actually done in the real world that we can now become the best that we can be through each other. But again, we shouldn't have anything that separates us. There's some teachers that teach that.
What does it mean to you, Gary? Like when in your Christianity, what does Jesus mean to you?
To me, he's the thing that I try and boldly go by. Because again, I'm not the best person in the world. I get angry, I get upset, I get frustrated. I'm a very stubborn person. I think you might have figured that out by now. I get depressed, I get anxious. I have depression and anxiety issues anyway. And the thing is that if I ever get stuck, he's the guy I go to try and help me out. Because again, like I try and follow the way he did things. Again, like I give to charity a lot, and I try and do the best that I can. I mean, it doesn't always work because again, like because again, as I said before, sometimes I get upset with myself or angry or whatever, or upset at other people, and I think that's unfortunate I did so. But I always go back to him, the way he taught. So he's the way that I try and model my values after. I'm not saying that, this is the way that everyone has to be, because again, people can follow, if they want to follow Engels, or they want to follow Nietzsche, or they want to follow Socrates, or trying to think, Sun Tzu, if they want to follow any of that stuff, great. If that works for you, great. I'm totally clear. If you're trying to bet yourself that way, or even if it's behind like a more model example, I'm trying to think of somebody, and so I don't know, somebody who tries to promote a better way to do things in a secular value, absolutely great. If that works for you, great. If that makes you a better person, I'm all for it.
I would say I think James and I both really do think we are doing this for good reasons. It is why we're doing it.
If I didn't think you were, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
No, we know that, Gary. We know you're really a really good guy, and it's really nice of you to come on and let us know how you feel. It helps us to understand, and we hear what other people think, and we can listen and understand. See, my ministry involves actually much more listening than talking. I want to know what makes people, why they think what they think, and why they believe what they believe, and have that mutual respect, because I'm just another person like you. I'm just trying to make the most sense of reality that I can make of it. So I definitely appreciate hearing what other people have to say.
Yeah, it expands our views.
Well, as I said, the thing is, last time we talked, unfortunately we had Godless Girl going hell forever. We didn't have a conversation like this. So, and again, the thing is that I've come in here to try and change your minds. You've tried to change mine. I doubt we've done it, but at least I've tried to show you why that. Again, religion can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. It depends on the person and how they come for it. Because again, if you're a bad person, you're going to be good to know the bad part of it. It'd be like, bad part of sports. Now, again, I don't know how sporting either of you are, or what of the sports fans either of you are, but you get one sports fan who just goes, wears his t-shirt, goes and has a good time.
American football, Miami Dolphins.
Exactly. Or I'm an American football fan as well, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. You get one football fan who
goes all the way. Just
what
saying.
team? What team?
Patriots, but again,
Patriots.
But I supported them in 1994 before they got good. So I had Drew Bledsoe as my quarterback, so I didn't get Tom Brady until later. But you know what I mean. You get your one football fans who will like paint themselves blue, have a great time. Not if I say would have a few drinks, shout the hell itself horse, but give it all and be passionate. That's one type of fan. The other type of fan who goes there, drinks too much and then gets into a fight with the other guy, saying, "Oh, what are you looking at?" Kabam, punches him, and then you're going, for heaven's sake, and that's all the camera looks at. Now, how would you like it if that fan was representing you? Exactly. You don't like it. That's exactly how I feel, because I'm a big sports guy, so again, I have that a lot. I'm like going, well, do you know what? I'm not like these drunken idiots. I just go and have my fun and sing and dance and have a good time. I like the. It's like being in church. I have the same sort of elegiac feeling, not the exact same, but similar elegiac feeling.
Did you watch Amy's debate today with Nephilim Free?
I watched parts of it, yeah.
Parts of it. In the debate, I believe it was during the debate when she said, she's not going to driving down the road and stopping at every church and running in there and telling all the people that they're believing in fables and then leaving and going to the next church and doing all that. Exactly. If they want to go to church and believe what they want to believe, that's fine. That they have that right. They have that freedom. But we're just putting out for people who have questions about it, for people who want to hear our perspective of it. But if if they're people and they like it, they want to do it, and it makes them happy, and they believe in it, there's nothing we can do to force them, and I would never try.
And once again, I think it was in the 40%, but they worded the questions. You believe the world and all of life formed between 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, and that was 40% of America. So,
and I mean, there's an interesting thing with that. Like they'll say that, but then if you ask them, when did the dinosaurs live? They'll probably tell you millions of years ago. They have these conflicting beliefs. It's like compartmentalized. They don't really think about it at the same time. Like, when they're thinking in religious mode versus when they're thinking in non-religious mode.
But here's the thing, though. What Nephi does is he conflates atheism with evolution / common descent. And he doesn't understand that that's a scientific belief that has nothing to do with atheism. I mean, atheism could be false, and evolutionary theory is still true as we know it today, and common descent is true today.
It's going to sound like we're pointing fingers, but they're the ones who want to muddy the water. I mean, we're the first to tell them that you could prove evolution wrong today. It's not going to change our mind or anyone's mind on God.
Or we could prove evolution is right, and you could still believe in God. You could just work your theology around it. There are millions of Christians who do. Mm-hmm. Like you, Gary, you accept evolution, but you're still a Christian.
Yeah.
So you don't have to adopt these crazy, nonsensical, non-reality-based belief systems, but there are some who do, like Nephilim free.
But again, the one argument that drives me nuts is when they start doing this whole paint by numbers thing, where it's all like, well, atheism has killed this much and Christianity has killed this much. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, the thing is that it wasn't you. The thing is that atheists today, as far as I know, are good people who try and do good things, and Christians are good people who try to do good things. Again, the thing is, we're arguing who is better. I mean, isn't that a great thing that we're up to this stage? I'm not thinking about killing each other anymore. Isn't that something that we should be celebrating?
Absolutely. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, no, I think it's always a silly point, because it's always like trying to see a trophy for who can kill more people, and it's never that simple. It's why people die is much more complicated, just like people's beliefs are much more complicated. And I also agree. I think giant majority of people are generally good. We have circumstances that sometimes push us in different ways, just like we have sociopaths that sometimes don't, who really do, if it wasn't for the law, would be doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But I think most people, when they see someone crying or injured, and really there's no loss, they will run over and they will help that person.
Well, Generally, I would even go as far as saying atheists. Like we make the case that we we did with the 9/11 hijackers, where they did what they did based on their religious beliefs, and we can look at situations like the conflict between Israel and the Arabs over there. And you could say, is it possible if religion went away tomorrow that they would still have conflicts over there? They would just be based about other things? That's possible. We don't know that it's only religion, but that's currently, the catalyst that's making it happen. But it could be something else take its place if religion went away.
Yeah, I'm almost guaranteed. I'd take bets that once we get rid of religion, there will be the people who wear hats. But I mean, what can you do? We can only tackle one problem.
One thing at a time. Yeah, it wouldn't make it all go away, but it would definitely make at least some of it.
Also, Gary, do you know who Norm Macdonald is?
Comedian, right?
Yes, he has a hat. I have the black version. It just says sports. It's one of my favorite possessions because it's just so general. It was a tangent, but it was a thought from when you were talking about it.
You follow any sports, Amy?
I follow because I'm quote unquote from Philly. I'm a diehard Eagles fan for no reason, even though I don't like I like sports because they're games. Like I'm into games, but it's hard to just get me to watch it unless I'm getting inebriated or food. So that's a good combo.
Well, yeah. What about you, Gary? What you like besides American football?
Writing, reading, going to the gym. I have to get off in half an hour. I'm afraid, guys. Because that thing that I do, because I've lost a lot of weight recently. So, well, yeah, I've lost 6 stone, which is what is that in pounds?
Nice.
I think that's about £70. I think.
Great. I've got 70 more you can have here.
But yeah, that's basically what I do. I like, as I said, I like watching all sports, to be honest with you. Because I love athleticism. I've always been fascinated by great athletes doing even if it's like something like quote unquote pretend like wrestling. I love the athleticism of it.
I just got into jiu-jitsu, which is wrestling or a form of wrestling.
What do you like, MMA, or what do you watch?
No, I take classes until COVID.
You're doing
I had a thing.
You're doing jiu-jitsu classes?
Yeah, it's fun, and it's funny because I get told by nerdy guys that it's for nerdy guys, and then it's fun because you, as a girl or trans or whatever, you can kind of go back and forth because you're trying to really get people's arms in weird positions. You're really trying to, get them to tap out. And
are you doing like the Brazilian jiu-jitsu or just traditional jiu-jitsu?
Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm just a white belt. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I thought about taking one of those. I did some taekwondo before, but it's hard for me because I have some health issues, and I should still do it anyway. But
I'm probably in the same boat.
Trying to see who the Dolphins play tomorrow. I forgot tomorrow's Sunday.
You've already played because you beat the Raiders today.
We played today, and I didn't even know that. Yeah,
you beat the Raiders by 1 point.
Oh my God!
In your defense, my days have been blending together. It's like it's dark outside.
Today's Saturday. Today's Saturday. We usually play tomorrow.
We beat the Raiders by 1 point. You're right, Gary. Thank you. San Francisco played. The Bucs slaughtered Detroit. Wow, 47-7. Tom Brady. He went off. And Philly plays Dallas tomorrow. Oh, that'll be a crappy game. They both.
Hey, that's our rivals.
Yeah, they're doing bad, just as bad as you guys. So. And then we already eliminated the playoffs the Patriots from the playoffs last week.
I kind of followed the Bucs because I want Tom Brady to do well, but as I said, because the thing is that I'm having my divided, because like Tom Brady is like literally like it's like he literally goes Jesus God, and then he goes Tom Brady for me, because Tom Brady is a very important person in my personal life, and not just for football.
He's a good man overall. I'll say. I mean, everything.
No. Well, the thing is that this is one of the reasons that I'm actually a theist, guys. Actually, because I'm dyspraxic, and I got told to my face that I could never achieve anything. By someone who was saying that I could never achieve anything because I am dyspraxic. Now, the thing about me is that I'm a very
you're dyslexic?
Dyspraxic.
Okay.
But learning clumsy child syndrome.
Okay.
So basically, he told me I could never achieve anything, and if you know anything about me, if you tell me I can't do something, I'll make it my mission to prove you wrong. Well, prove me right. Well, what it is. And again, I watched. I was watching the Patriots at that time because it was about the time where Tom Brady started, and he was lower down the line and stuff like that. I'm thinking, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So it annoyed me. So that was like one of the steps of the path.
I would say I am very happy for Tom Brady now that we don't have to play him twice a year. So
Well, you got Tua now. And Fitzmagic.
yeah, we got Tua, and the Patriots don't have Brady. So hey,
Well, we've got
I
Cam
don't have to
Newton.
deal with him all the time.
We've got Cam Newton, which
Yeah,
is a bit of a step down, but
Belichick, he'd rather get rid of a guy 1 year too soon than a year too late.
Yeah, the best player in our history. No, I'm not even going into it.
Sore subject, I know, for a lot of Patriots fans, but
yeah. Anyway, Michael Raptor asked me questions which I think you guys might want to follow up on as well. But as I said, I've got another 15 minutes before 25 minutes before I dash. So I'll try and do it as quickly as I can. To Gary,
Sure.
why does he have to reset the creations? Why doesn't he have to reset the creation story of the Bible? Okay, because Augustine, as I said before, said that if science is you understand the Bible, you understand it both. And this idea of woodenly literal didn't come across until what, 1865. I think I might be a bit off a bit. Ellen G. White, 7-Day Adventists. I think I'm right with the person. She was the one who said that literally God spoke to her and said that we have to take it woodenly literally. This is where the 6-day creation comes from. This is where the 6,000 years comes from. So for this person, it does not come from, Christianity from your bleep or whatever, because there's always been interpretations about, what does the snake signify? What does Adam and Eve signify? Again, I've got my own understanding of what they are. This will only be my own personal interpretation of what I think they are. If you really want an answer to that question.
Well, I mean, I think there always has been a strain of Christians who have taken it literally, but you're right. For a long time, the predominant views of the theologians were trying to look at it and see what the different things could represent. And like the age of the earth, we have seen a renaissance, in the past maybe 50, 60 years of that literal interpretation of the Genesis account as being actual history, as opposed to being allegory or metaphor or some other type of literary device that we can, as a way of explaining it, without really telling us what's going on.
If you want my opinion, I think that's because there's been a lot of these secular events, and I think that whenever you push it too hard against something, the other side will come up against it to fight against it. That's the reason why, you can see it through human history. You got the Cavaliers and the Roundheads. You got it with the English and the French. You got it with anything. As soon as one power rises too fast, others fight it, because humans are always like that. They always oppose something if they can. So, what's the point of believing the Bible if he rejects that then? But again, I don't have to take it wooden literally, because again, the other Christians did take it woodenly literally, and I would argue that again, this idea that we do, as I said, is as a later American idea. Now I understand that there's a lot of younger creationism in America. Oh, actually, there's some younger creationism here. Actually, and I think you guys might be shocked by this. There's actually a younger creationist. I think it's a museum somewhere in Britain.
Oh, that breaks my heart a little bit. But...
Yeah, it breaks mine as well.
Like we were on I was on Smokey's channel before we started this stream, and someone was on there talking about debating that I should debate Smokey on the flood. Oh, it's Iron Charioteer. I love that guy.
he's a
great guy. I love Iron Charioteer. I said I really can't debate Smokey on the flood because, I mean, I could, but he goes with a local flood, and so a lot of the things that you would point to as being a problem with the regular flood, he works around that. So,
wait, how is that a miracle that a local flood happened?
Well, because that doesn't conflict with modern geology that proves there was no no global flood, but there were local floods all over. So it doesn't really make sense, because why would God tell Noah to build a boat if he was just going to flood locally? Why would he have to do all the thing with the animals? Because there'd be animals in other places that weren't killed. So why wouldn't he just tell Noah to move to a really tall hill or
Get on a
whatever? I don't know.
camel and get the frig out of there. Whoa.
Yeah. But they're dealing with two things. They're dealing with the Bible, a book that talks about a flood, and they're dealing with geology that says there was no global flood. So that's all they have to work with. So yeah, how can you make that work? Well, there had to be a flood, but it couldn't have been global. So maybe it was just a local flood. I don't know.
The fish get the real good deal out of the global flood. I'm just saying.
Well, if you look at the language, it does say. I think the term is erst, which means local land, and I think that because he saw local people, it's more likely that it is, because again, like, you could have a tsunami or something like that flaming floods a total continent, or at least a lot of the land mass for a long time until the water dies down again. Especially like if you look back to that period when flaming, the tectonic plates would shift all over the place.
I mean, if you listen to let Nephilim free about the flood, he will go. He goes into some crazy territories when he starts talking about the flood. Even one time he was talking about that with Smokey, and Smokey raged, like dropped out of the stream. He just got so mad listening to Nephilim Free just come up with all these excuses and these crazy theories to try to justify it.
How long have you been on YouTube, James? Sorry, I tried to cut you off.
No, I've been on YouTube for a long time, but I've been...
All right, so do you remember when he did the space squirting it onto the moon thing?
Nephilim Free? Yeah. When about the waters, that was the excuse for the craters on the moon, was the water shooting out of the crust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they were saying, well, maybe when we go to the moon, we'll find evidence of marine life there.
Just so much to take on board. Like, why?
Yeah.
So much mental gymnastics.
Well, that's definitely for you. As I said, like, when you say that, as I said, I couldn't listen to a lot of it because, again, Neffy's a very frustrating person to listen to at the best of times. Again, because I've seen people, PhD levels, try to explain to him this stuff, and he just won't listen. Like, I've seen Fiona Robinson, I've seen PZ Myers do it, I've seen everyone try to do it.
That's one of our topics earlier, was that it's almost, I don't know if it's sad or funny, that they really do sit there with PhDs and with just I don't know how, I guess you can't adjust your voice, but it just with this condescending level, and it's always the PhD people that are like not throwing ad hominems, not doing.
Yeah, and they're just hand waving away reality, hand waving away facts and logic, and no, sorry, no. Well,
I mean, the thing is, you've got to remember that for a lot of them, a lot of their finances are tied up in promoting this stuff. Like, you can Hans, you can Hovens. I mean, they run like these centers that, like, you'll make them millions, thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions in the year.
Yeah,
I mean, Ken Hoven could get money selling his creationist stuff. I mean, he could be the one handing you the bag of food when you pull up to McDonald's. I mean, what else could the guy do, really?
And
we haven't know much about anything else.
Yeah, I would love to debate him.
What's that?
I would love to debate him. That'd be a fun one.
Ken Hoven?
Yeah.
That would be fun. That would be like that would really launch you to the mainstream, but he's very shy about debates now.
Yeah.
Maybe he does a thing, whack an atheist. Maybe eventually he'll pick up one of our streams and he'll whack Amy Newman. You know,
Buy a
have you seen that
SpongeBob
thing
model.
where he does the SpongeBob and he whacks it with a hammer?
That's his whole shtick is what breaks my heart about that, there's a deep irony, is that the person who created SpongeBob was a marine biologist, I think he's dead now, but he would be turning over in his grave if he saw Ken Hoven doing that. He'd be like, yes, SpongeBob logic, marine biology.
Yeah. Ken Hoven is on SpongeBob level logic, that's for sure. But actually, if you listen to Nephilim Free, like even tonight, a lot of his talking points are basically recycled Hoven talking points.
Yeah, well, him and I feel bad. I try not to gloat about it because it's not good to gloat. But I have what's his name, Wrench. The entire reason I'm a mod at Modern Day Debate is because what's his name? Nathan.
Nathan Thompson.
Nathan Thompson was raging at people. And he was going off on people. He was blocking people just because he's asking questions, and it was just a coincidence. But within the same, I would say, 3 minutes that he lost his wrench, I gained my wrench. So I like to think of it as that I have his wrench.
So Nathan had a wrench in Modern Day Debate, and he was timing people out and deleting people for disagreeing with him.
Yes, he was.
Wow.
He was blocking people and all this because he goes hardcore on this Glober stuff.
You know who else was doing that one time was Otangelo, and
yeah,
Otangelo's had his wrench taken away, and then he cries to get it back. And then he'll start timing people out just for questioning his religion, and then James will take it away again.
I don't think I've ever banned someone or moved some. I tend to like advertise and be like, send questions to James and stuff.
Yeah, and James doesn't want like a heavily regulated
exactly.
chat. I think Gary's getting ready to go, so.
Yeah, I've got to go and gym in a little bit. I've got to get change stuff, but it's been nice chatting to you, and hopefully we can have a chat again sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're a nice guy, Gary. You're good to have you on.
Nice convo.
Right. I'll see you later, chaps.
Nice.
Have a good night. Always nice to talk to somebody from the UK who likes American football because, you know.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a backhanded insult, but always nice to talk to sane theists. It really is. Like,
it is.
I that's all I care. We're doing this. It sounds silly for science, but that really is the entire shtick. We just,
and I mean, most of them,
people to believe things.
A lot of them are sane. We're just trying to talk to that strain. But even when I was a theist, I like to think, especially towards the end, I was sane. But
as Matt Dillahunty said, he didn't gain intelligence points the day after he stopped being a theist. It's not about that.
Yeah, they're not dumb. They're not stupid. And, people who, they're not delusional per se. Most of them are not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it helps atheists to make that argument that they should all be institutionalized or committed. That's just...
No. Well, that's the general. I don't actually see as much edgy. They complain about it, but there are lots of edgy atheists out there.
Somebody in the chat said something about you, and they're like, Amy, he's so edgy, and then someone else timed him out because of the gender reference. But
really, I saw. It's so funny. I saw some of the first comments on the debate was like, he, they, her. Just want to pronoun them correctly. It's like you went out of your way not to.
But see, I don't mind. I don't go there because I know you. That doesn't really bother you. You'll just. You'd rather talk about the facts and what they're here to debate, not get stuck on gender.
Yeah, if anything, it means they're losing traction, and it shows their uncomfortability because I forget about it, and then they bring it up, and I'm like, oh right, my voice. Okay, yeah, okay, let's do this.
Or like Mr. Batman.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Sir,
because I forget about it.
Sir,
yeah, exactly. But
sir.
Yeah. There are people on his own channel that do imitations of him. They'll go, sir, sir, sir. But yeah, I mean, it triggers them more than it triggers me. I mean, I understand why they think it triggers me, but then it encompasses any one of their arguments that they start to. It can take it. It's almost like they find ways. So speaking of evolution, sir.
Yeah, they don't really have a whole lot to work with, so a lot of it is just air filler. It's just time filler because they have to say something. They don't really have a lot of facts or evidence to say. So
also, when you go for insults, it's the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah, it is absolutely
when you try.
Absolutely.
So yeah, okay. So we're actually coming up on hour 3.
Yeah, you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah. Do you want to do your closer?
Well, I'll let you go first, and then I'll respond.
That sounds good. So, what the hell is anti-theism? Anti-theism is really about opposing theism. It is different than just being an atheist, which you can be an atheist and not an anti-theist. But to me, it is a recognition that religion is the largest superstition in the world. That has been my word of the night. And because of that, it oftentimes allows people to have many other superstitious beliefs. And we do not act on 100% certainty or knowledge. We act on our beliefs. And so I will spend the rest of my days opposing theism. Thank you. James?
Yeah, and that's true. Religion's not the cause of all problems in society. It's not, it's just one thing that we are trying to work against that we think is overall more harmful to society than the benefits could be. It doesn't mean religious people are bad people. They're not dumb people. They're not, it's not about launching ad hominems. It's just about what's right and what's wrong, what's true and what's untrue. And we happen to feel strongly on this subject that all the claims for religion that we've heard so far are not convincing, that we don't feel that there's good arguments, there's not good reasons to believe them. If you think that there is a good reason, be happy to listen to what you have to say and whatnot. But so far, haven't heard a good reason to believe in any God existing. And superstitious beliefs tend to cause people to act irrationally, and there are tangible harms that religion is doing to our society. We talked about some of those today. Again, there's lots of other things wrong with society, but you can only really fix one. We're working on one thing at a time, and we're just preaching the gospel of reality, preaching the doctrine of truth. And thank you.
And I agree. And so with that, this is going to bring us to the end. I hope you all have an awesome night. If you liked what you saw, like and subscribe. And
we'll do this again.
Have a good night.
Later in the week or next week.
Absolutely. That sounds great. I guess
all
I'll
right,
see
Amy.
you then.
Have a good night.
Night.
Thanks for everybody who participated. Have a good night.